This is Diehard Gamer Radio, Episode 10.
You are listening to Diehard Gamer Radio, the source for off-mainstream video game news and topics. Now your hosts, Murdock, Brian, and John.
Well, welcome back to Diehard Gamer Radio. As always, I am one of your hosts, Murdock. And as always, we have Steve, Brian, and John, and they are air guitaring or being air nerds. Or
yeah! Just say Steve, Brian, and Sean.
John.
I was wondering when Sean got here.
He's coming later.
Yeah.
Hey, did you know this is Diehard Gamer Radio?
He's one of my 6 personalities.
So do we have any opening banter for the audience before we start with the news?
Wasn't that the air guitar bit?
Yeah.
Steve's World, excellent party time! Alright.
The leprechaun!
I'm a little leprechaun. No, stop it!
We're going to get sued.
Did we just switch from suck to blow?
Yes, we did.
So
we're not blowing hard yet.
Yes. So we're going to start with our first news bit. We may launch as early as September or October. That's the Nintendo Wii.
I think what this has for us is we still have like another 6 months of rumors to wade through.
Well,
and just officially.
So this isn't your first game console, then.
And let our growing public know, my Wii launched many years ago.
Is your Wii a titan of the industry?
3D me.
Well, let's just say the launch was mighty big. It's a grower, not a shower.
So, rumor September, October for the Wii. Not big surprise. Nintendo's hoping for September to offset the launch.
Didn't they deny
of the
that on their
PS3.
own website, though? They said not September. We deny that emphatically.
You know, they've gone
We denied
back
the Wii?
and forth, so...
The Wii was denied.
Yeah, they've gone back and forth so much. I mean, we're going to hear like about 1 billion more system launches, system dates for the Wii before this is all over.
We're going to be hearing them after it's out.
Oh, yeah. It was supposed to come out then. It was supposed to come out this.
Some guy in Alaska, I think it's coming around December.
No, then they just start on the European release date rumors.
Yeah, but
it should be like, what, summer next year?
But it's Europe, and as you know, diehard gamers, we don't care about Europe. So anyway, next.
Watch out, they'll headbutt you.
Yes.
At least the Italians will.
Well, the French will.
Oh, is it? Yeah, French.
Yeah.
My bad.
You can tell we obviously care about Europe and their sports.
Yeah, obviously big soccer fans.
So our next news bit Generations to be released. And we have a link on our website. And basically these are simple games. They retail about, what was it? $25 each. And they're kind of simple games. So you saw a couple of the games, right, Brian?
Yeah, it looks like they're only releasing half of them at a time. So there's 3 out now. I believe it was
Dialhex, Boundish, and
the race game.
Dotstream,
yeah.
And the videos on them look actually kind of interesting. Very minimal graphics.
It's minimalistic. It's simplistic, too. I mean, it's like they're trying to achieve not just a core audience, but they're trying to get everybody that would ever want to try a game. This is like the base game you would come in and try. There's racing games, puzzle games, like a breakout clone. I mean, they're really simple. They're easy to understand, easy to play, and they look like they're really well done between the color and the background music you hear. So I really think they're just something simple. They're trying to catch everybody, and they've already got a huge foothold on the portable market anyway, so why not just make it a litble better?
Yeah.
So
it also looks like it's some sort of a play into freeware. Just games that homebrews that people are doing online. It looks like it's kind of their own shot at it, except it's just really professionally done.
Yeah, they are first-party Nintendo games.
So if this is like a racing clone and a breakout clone and stuff, maybe the reason they're easy to play is because we've all played them before?
They're based on the same concepts, but they're not used the same. That's the weird thing. Is like the breakout one didn't have just a side-to-side breakout. It had circular ways you could play. It had double paddles, one in front, one in back. I mean, you really got to watch the videos to understand how they play because they are very unique.
Yeah.
They're not clones of anything, but they're like improvements of prior concepts.
And if you look at the video for especially the racing game, Dot Stream, I mean, all it is just like, lines of dots, and they have like these little colored trails behind them, and they're going through a passageway, and you look at it to begin with, and you're like, well, what is this? Because you don't realize until after.
Yeah.
It's just so abstract that you don't realize that it's supposed to be a racing game.
It's an Art Deco racer.
Yeah.
So how much do GBA games cost in Japan that $25 is actually a deal?
It's, was it 2,000 yen each?
They were 19,800
1,900 yen.
Yeah, so
something like that, in the 19 to 2,000 yen range. So about $25.
So how much do GBA games normally cost? That's a deal.
I think it's like 3,500, 4,000 yen. Probably like
sounds close.
Yeah, so it's about.
It's pretty
I'd
rare
say about
I buy
half.
one from Japan, so
It's about half of a Game Boy Advance game, of a normal Game Boy Advance game. And the thing is that these games may possibly be coming out in the United States. They already have the ESRB ratings for them already. The thing that I'm afraid of is that these games may be so small that they may just end up putting them all on one cartridge as opposed to separating them out as separate cartridges. But
why are you afraid of this?
Well,
I would rather buy 8 games for $30 than
true.
rather than have to pay $25 a piece for them.
True. But we'll see when that happens.
We also
I'm hoping
depend on
they
how
come
their
this
sales
country.
are in Japan with these two, because if they reach a certain mark where they've made the money they projected to make it, then they'll put it out as a greatest hits, or they'll put it out in a compilation.
Yeah, interestingly enough, the Famitsu scores for them came out yesterday, and Dial Hex, which was the puzzle game, got the highest score. It got like a 34, 35 out of 40.
It's definitely the neatest out of the 6 I saw.
The others, not so well.
I can totally believe that. Puzzle games have never needed good graphics to work.
Yeah. So next, Project Sylph, the latest work of the Sylphid series, is announced for the Xbox 360.
One more reason to pick up a 360 when it's, more affordable.
Well, that gives me one reason then.
It's a pretty trailer.
You're telling me you wouldn't buy Senko no Rande on it? Yeah, you
I would
know you'd buy it.
Here's the thing. Japanese only game. I would have to buy a Japanese PS2 to run it. I mean, a Japanese Xbox 360 to run it. So, unless they're planning on bringing it out in this country, which I highly doubt, because, shooters are evil, LOL, 10111. I don't see myself buying an Xbox 360 unless, they come up with like a mod kit or something for me to play the import game.
Yeah, I think that's another fault on Microsoft's part. I mean, they should have made that universal just like the PS3 is supposedly supposed to be, and the portables are going to.
Well, nobody else has done it yet, so we'll see whether or not, the region lock thing even works out. I mean,
but they've been pushing to do things first and get their system out first. That should have been another first. I mean, it should have been one of those things that they should have pushed to do, because they're not losing any money to piracy and whatnot, and they're not going to anytime soon. They're trying to get all these people to buy the 360, but they're diverting the crowds, the Japanese versus the Americans, and they're making specific only games for both sides, and who knows who would buy those if they had the ability to play.
Importers are not a large chunk of the market.
No, but when you're Microsoft and you're trying to sell a console that's failing over in Japan, I would think you would want to get every little piece you could get.
Well, I don't know how much that would help, because the Japanese really aren't interested in our games. That's why the 360 is doing so badly.
No, but we're interested in Japanese games. That's
the
just
360 is doing just fine here.
Keep in mind, we are interested in Japanese Xbox 360 games. Now, the Madden and Halo crowd gamers probably would care less that Senko no Rande is coming out on.
They don't even know it exists. They never will.
But give me a reason other than piracy that they don't make that universal. Why? I mean, I can see in Europe where they sometimes have problems with that
No, the reason is totally to price control the markets. That way they can charge more for games in Japan than they charge for games here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
That's why they do it. That's why movies are region locked and everything. It is very much not to the consumer's benefit.
and obviously less money for them, I think. In the
Does Sierra have anything to do with this Sylphid?
No.
Since this is
a different company, yeah.
Well, this is a Sierra property. Sylphid is.
Yeah, but they license out properties all the time. I mean,
Was it a Sierra property, or was Sierra just the licensee for it?
No,
in the
they
United
came up
States?
with everything.
Mm-hmm.
It was the sequel to
way back
Dexter.
to Apple, yeah.
So.
Huh. So why is a Japanese company making this?
I don't know.
Well, what was it?
It's a shooter, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's
Sylphid
probably why
lost
they're.
Well, it's a
Sylphid on the
weird-looking
PlayStation
shooter,
2
though.
It was a weird shooter when it was out in the U.S.
Well, it's not going to be like a side-scrolling shooter. It's like 3D in weird ways.
Yeah.
I've seen the trailer, and it's kind of like I'm not entirely sure how one would
17D.
play this game.
Yeah.
So our next topic is Cave Story is headed to the Game Boy Advance.
Bunga bunga.
And for those of you who may not be familiar with Cave Story is a freeware game that you can download from a guy by the name of Pixel, and his studio is called Pixel Studios.
Yeah, just in case you weren't totally up to date on your Japanese freeware.
Yes, and it's an excellent game. It is a very good game. It's kind of a mix of like Metroid and platforming type games.
Yeah, very simplistic, but still kind of fun.
It's got a cute art style to it too.
Yeah, so there will probably be there will be a Game Boy Advance version sometime in the near future. Next.
So did they just like totally drop the cost for developing GBA games or something?
I guess some developer was so impressed with it they decided to go ahead and just
take the plunge.
I mean, the game's like 90% done already. All they need to do is just change up the graphics, put it on a Game Boy Advance cartridge, and sell it. So I don't see that it being a real hard
Probably
sell when the game's like
polishing
90% developed anyway. Yeah.
Oh, maybe we'll see it in the U.S. too then, since
You've
it's
got
already
like 10%
translated.
R&D costs over your 90, you know.
Next, we have some racism news. Claims of Loco Roco being racist and Sony's racially charged PSP ad. So we're going to start with the Loco Roco thing. Apparently there is a Loco Roco creature who kind of looks like a black-faced character with dreadlocks.
Maybe.
Yeah.
If you're
Everybody
on crack
in
and
your
eating a watermelon and fried
look at your
chicken,
animated
goddammit.
gift in your mind that says that's racist.
Well, apparently somebody thought that. It's not the majority, and it wasn't multiple people. Just
It
one
was
guy
some
said, "Hey,
guy.
this looks racist."
Some dude
This guy could have
somewhere.
looked at Jell-O the wrong way and said, "Hey, that bowl of Jell-O is racist," you know. So we don't
It makes
have
fun
any
of
proof.
wobbly people.
Yeah, that's making fun of the
all
handicap.
the United States. Making fun of the wobblies.
The wobblies.
Jell-O's attracting the weevils.
Well, either that or the Irish. They're wobbly for a different reason.
Yeah. And there's also the PSP ad that's been causing some controversy.
Oh, yes. Yeah. It's
Yes,
for the
yes.
ceramic white PSP, right?
Yes.
Yes.
There's multiple ads of that. Wasn't
Well,
there?
there's three ads. There's a white woman being domineering over is it a black woman?
Yes.
Yeah, and they're both
And
dressed
then
in
there's-
their respective colors.
I love
completely
those pictures.
One shade only.
Yes.
I
and
love
then
those
there's one
pictures.
where they're on
that takes me back to like a Billy Idol cover.
Takes me
Like,
back to
totally.
4chan.
Yeah. Well, it's always going to go back to 4chan. Unfortunately.
There's also one of the other ads is them on like equal ground. They're just staring at each other, and then one where the black woman's actually domineering over the white woman, and they're
these
just
were
saying
European ads, though.
Yeah, and here's my thing. America, stop, like, using your...
Your
No,
societal
not
guilt
Yeah.
to project to the rest of the world.
Yeah,
Not to say that the
using
rest of the
your
world doesn't
morality and
have,
judging
you
the
know,
rest of the world.
the
I
rest of
think
the world
most of
has
Europe has
prejudice to
probably
deal with
gotten over it,
themselves.
yeah.
It's just that just because it's like strikes you as racist or prejudiced or something in the U.S. because of your cultural background doesn't mean that, you know, somebody in Poland is going to look at this and go, that's racist. Because they're going to go, where's the vodka?
Yeah, or they're going to go, damn, that's hot.
Yeah,
I think in Poland,
which
it's
is what I was saying with the first one.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know how
Pretty
hot
much.
it was because, man, staring at that first one, it took me a while to figure out. Well, it took me the caption to figure out that black woman was a woman.
Well, you know, it's
Yeah.
all in the mind.
Looking at it from a video game perspective, it didn't even hit me as racist initially.
Well,
Yeah.
when I first
I
saw the
didn't
first
even
one,
see
I
that.
thought it was kind of questionable. But as soon as I saw the whole ad in context, I just thought, oh, Sony's just being crazy again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you got to look at the other angle of this, though. Maybe it was
They
on
meant
the
to do
edge
that.
because what gets better publicity than a bunch of people talking about something that they
That's
disagree
what I
on.
mean by Sony being crazy again.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
which part of, jump here in front of the subway platform
Yeah.
is not meant to
So
inspire
Sony's
some
pretty much being
controversy.
Sony.
Well, and then, does this mean that, like, the folks in, what was that, Flashback, the little ray-traced one, vector-traced one back in the day that was all black and white and big shapes, does it mean that that's racist, too? Because there's black characters and white characters, and the white guys running around killing people. I mean, really.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
evil shape changers are all black.
Yeah.
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 Well, that was
So-
back when video games weren't as important. Now they're a little more in the mainstream.
Well, they make more
Everybody
people
can-
money, probably.
Yeah, so all Sony, it's just a huge publicity stunt, in my opinion. And not only that, but the
Yeah.
ads weren't really that effective because when I looked at the ad, I'm like, well, what the hell are they selling?
Yeah,
and right
so,
away, if I have to
yeah.
ask my question, not a good ad.
Yeah.
Yeah, it kinda
Obviously
makes for a
fault
crappy
in the
ad at that point.
advertising.
Yeah. So next news bit, Collectic is a game where you search for wireless local area network access points. It comes out as a PSP homebrew, and Brian had pointed out this game to me. Do you know any more information regarding this game?
No, just that it is good. It is officially coming out. I mean, this just started as kind of a
Well,
side
what do you mean
project.
by officially?
Well, the guy said that he's pushing to get it coming out, and that somebody, I think I read that there was a company that was going to try and put it out. I mean, they're going to actually take a shot at it, so it's more than likely going to happen. This is such a unique homebrew. I think it's an opportunity that isn't going to be missed. I think it will come out.
It's kind of unique. I mean, it's a standard puzzle game where unsecured wireless LAN points are power-ups.
Yeah. But I think
So where's
it's
the
neat.
challenge? I mean, seriously, you become Superman with about 5 minutes of moving around.
Well, that's
Well,
just
actually,
so if
because
you
the
hit
wireless
wrong-
LAN ones are randomly, and there is no way to determine either positive or negative.
Even if you hit the wrong one, it wipes everything and you start over. So it could be just as exciting as it could be pissing you off in 5 minutes. So I just think it's a unique concept that utilizes the wireless mode of the PSP, and I think it'd be stupid for
And
people to pass
according
it
to the
up.
website, it's all based on the IP addresses of the wireless LAN points, and it uses the IP address to determine like a graphical representation of how many points you would get at that point, and then they just go from there.
And what
So-
better
That
could
doesn't
you-
make much sense because almost every wireless LAN you'll run into will be at 192.168.0.1.
Well, yeah.
It does something else with them, which I'm not too
And
sure.
just something
Maybe
even
it-
more
maybe it
important.
posts
You'd
the
have to
MAC
actually go
address
to the
or something.
website to have it.
I
really
would, if it
explained
used
to
the
you.
MAC address, that would make sense.
And it does something even more important. It gets a bunch of fat American kids off their feet, or off their ass, running around, chasing around
Wow.
the neighborhood looking for something, and at the same time playing a video game. So
Yeah,
it's
so while they're
justified that they're actually
So
on
while
their
they're
feet.
wandering around for wireless LAN points,
And
there's,
getting arrested by
pedophiles
Panera.
behind them going, I'm going to play Pac-Man.
And as they wander out in the street to hit that power up and get hit by
Get
a
hit by
bus
a
and
bus.
get sued.
Really, I think they're more likely to be sitting in the back of their parents' car
And
driving
we'll hear,
by.
hey,
and
that
trying to get 'em.
that bus driver was racist. He
He ran over that kid with that kid with the black PSP.
Yeah.
Next news bit, Square Enix throws a hissy fit when bloggers release info on an upcoming game. So what this is
Can we release info on an upcoming game too?
oh,
we could use
no,
that kind of publicity.
Square will just go ahead and just, rip our heads off.
Is there a reason why we care about Square games?
Well,
Hey, but
yes.
then Square would be listening to us, so quick.
Yeah.
We need some unreleased Squeenix news.
Yeah.
well, what
Squeeze
the-
out the Squeenix.
Well, here's what it is. Here's what the info is. On oneup.com, some reviewer, and I'll have to get you the link, he posted some information on Valkyrie Profile 2, which is a game that was just released in Japan and will be released in the United States come September or October. And a lot of this information was either off publicly released press packets that Square had released, or off the Japanese website, like videos and stuff that were publicly accessible.
Wasn't some of this like video from like the ending cinematic and stuff?
No. All of it was stuff that had been released legitimately through Square. And he said, hey, look, I've got some information on Valkyrie Profile too. Here it is. And then Square turns around and is like, no, you can't show this. You need to remove it off your website because we want to, and they didn't say it, but basically they want to control what comes out and when.
Yeah.
And the thing is, he turned around and said, no, I'm not removing this stuff because it's already out in the public. I mean, you can't control public information. It's already out there.
Information wants to be free. Hack the Gibson. Hack the planet.
So basically, Square started throwing a big hissy fit going,
we didn't get to speak first. We lost our spelling bee.
And any company that does this is a fucking moron. I'm sorry. Never pass up free advertising.
Yeah.
So they just worried about
online.
news getting out when it's still going to be...
And it's one up. I mean, you're talking about, Ziff Davis, huge corporation, guys that own EGM, and then Square's going to piss them off. Not a good idea.
And they didn't have to pay for it.
Yeah, exactly.
More importantly, if we could go back to Collectic real quick, I just remembered I was confusing that with another game. I believe you can actually go to this guy's website and download it for free. I think it's a complete homebrew.
Yeah,
so you actually don't have to pay
PSP
for it.
Your PSP can't be upgraded past 2.0 because that's the last hacked version of the firmware.
Actually, there's a hacked version after 2.0.
No.
Yeah, they did hack it about...
Is it 2.6 yet?
I'm not sure. It's one of the 2.5s. I don't think it's 2.6 yet.
Ah, crap.
Don't quote me on that. I will double check on that. Next news bit: Cooking Mama comes stateside.
Woohoo!
So gamers can now learn how to cook.
So are they going to
first
change
I
the
put my
recipes?
Nintendo DS into the pot and
I stir it up real good and get it to a
So
boil.
do we get any news if they're changing the recipes to be Japanese traditional or U.S. recipes?
As of right now, they haven't announced any recipe changes. But if you look at the Japanese one, the recipes are mostly kind of American to begin with.
Look at Mommy, I can make sushi. Great.
So
what the
they're
hell's
making
sushi?
pizza with cream corn?
Well, they're making
Sugar sandwiches?
they're making hamburgers with like eggs on top and stuff that's like really bad for you.
Huh.
Sunnyside
Well, this was
cows.
one of the games I thought was most interesting out of E3, so this is pretty good news.
Yeah. So
Is Chairman Kaga on this one?
no, some strange Japanese girl that roots you on if you cut.
Isn't she supposed to be your, cooking mama?
Some strange Japanese girl who cheers you on if you cut. Is she an emo Japanese girl?
No, if she, cut like vegetables and stuff. I was trying to complete my sentence, but you wouldn't let me.
Well,
You were cutting in.
I wish these vegetables were emo so they would cut themselves.
Vegetables, yes. Our next topic: the Xbox 360 to get an HDMI port.
Maybe. Seeing as you would have to have them release an entirely different Xbox to do
They
it.
may end up doing that.
Well, what we've seen so far...
They've already done it twice in
is-
Japan.
Well, that wasn't any different, though.
Yeah.
They just re-released the same thing.
Yeah, but they
Again.
still failed.
But
Third
what we've
time's the
seen so
charm.
far is some blurry pictures of what looks to be an Xbox 360 board with an HDMI port on it. They might be pictures of that, might not be. Not sure.
There's probably kids in the mod
It was-
community that could actually just add an HDMI port.
What
at
is
this
it,
point.
sir? Well, maybe nothing at all, sir, but again, maybe a lot.
It's like some random board that somebody silk screened enough stuff on it to look like a 360 board.
Yeah.
Well, the best explanation I've heard for this, though, and that I think is the most plausible, is we know they're releasing the HD DVD accessory, which will have an HDMI port on the back of that. So the most plausible scenario I've seen for this is that after they release that, sometime later, they'll release a super platinum revision of the Xbox 360 that has that HD
or-
3D DVD
or-
and HDMI built
So with
in.
that
Another-
new accessory, it would just be piggybacked onto that.
Well, it'd be like, here, either you can buy them separate or you could
Yeah.
buy them together.
Yeah.
But the other possibility, too, that it could
like
be
the
is that
32X.
it actually was an Xbox 360 prototype when they were trying to figure out what feature set they were putting in the 360. And look, we got a picture of a prototype with an HDMI port in it.
We're definitely fully in rumor mode at this point, yes.
Yeah. Our last news bit is the SEC launches a Take-Two investigation. Gee, what a surprise. I'm not sure.
Well, the most enlightening comment I read about this was actually on Slashdot. Believe it or not, there are enlightening comments on Slashdot.
Well, huh?
Well, if you browse at
I'm going to mod that troll!
if you browse at 5, then you actually get stuff interesting.
That's pretty much all I managed to do on Slashdot these days.
Yeah. Well, the thing is that basically the SEC is going around and is basically looking at all the .com era tech companies, because all of them had the accounting practice of backdating their options to the lowest price. And Take-Two also did this, which is why they're being investigated, more or less. And so really it's not that much of a surprise.
This might actually be a good thing because I've been watching their stock pretty closely, and if it drops far enough, I'll actually buy some of it.
Then you can go into shareholder meetings with Jack Thompson.
You can. And unless you've got a majority stock, they can just vote you out for being a dumbass.
Yeah. Which is what they should do with Jack.
That
was
for
Jack
simple
Thompson's
majorities.
idea. It's like, I'll buy stock, and then I can go ahead and go to these stockholder meetings and say stuff.
Where they'll immediately vote you out. They'll toss you out on the curve by their stockholder
the winner
bouncers.
is you. Get the fuck out.
Yeah.
They have security guards for a reason.
Yeah.
Yes.
Although I don't think that the
promote
ones that
social
he's going
conscience
to
for
will be
large
at
corporations.
like the Walmart ones where they rent out a stadium for their stockholder meeting. And they have to have 2 nights, one for the really big stockholders and one for the smaller holding stockholders.
You mean like employees?
Well, yeah. yeah, right. Like they give employees stock.
They did originally.
Yeah, not anymore.
Yeah,
They barely give their employees citizenship.
Yeah.
In the country of Walmart?
We will
Yes, in the country of Walmart.
We'll guarantee you a citizenship. Come work for us for $4.50 an hour.
Yeah. $4.50 an hour, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
That's what I made
They're
my
actually
first
giving
minimum
out,
wage.
Like 1/4 health care now, too.
That's...
Well, but see, they're really being kind because they pay so little, so you still qualify for government assistance.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's nice of them.
Intelligent
Thanks
design
for that,
to screw our company
fuckers.
over. Parasitic bastards.
All right. Next, we're going to go into our game topics. And our first game topic is there going to be a rebirth of the U.S. arcade? Now, before we begin this topic, I must explain to the kids what an arcade is.
Well, there's one or two around somewhere.
Yeah. So,
It's a big
anyone
place where you
who
go to
was-
play video games that's not daycare.
Yeah. So anyone born before, say, 1990 will probably know what an arcade is. Everyone else, pay attention.
Well, actually, there's lots of arcades still around, but they only have ticket games.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So basically an arcade was stand-up arcade machines, and you had to put quarters in them to turn them on.
Giant cabinet made out of presswood or MDF that housed a monitor with large sticks and little buttons.
Yes.
that reacted within the motherboard.
except
Sometimes
for
the sticks weren't too big.
Yeah, well,
except
like
for the
balls.
Dragon's Lair. The Dragon's Lair.
That was like a double-decker arcade game.
Well,
Yeah, it was made of
TV on top,
steel.
yeah.
That thing was like heavy and a half.
Actually, this is an interesting topic. I'm glad you
Because
brought
he got
this
so
up.
angry at it.
yeah.
because,
There's this player skipping again.
I read on Insert Credit just today, InsertCredit.com had an article saying that Sega is going to push to bring arcade games back to America, and they might be reopening arcades themselves or pushing into existing arcades to see if they can bring it back to, I don't know if they'll ever reach former glory, so to speak.
Well, it'll
but-
never reach former glory because all the games that are in arcades, or at least the arcade-type establishments like Dave & Buster's, aren't really the true arcade games we grew up with. These are very much like the DDRs and the stuff where you have
they're
to
not
actually
gonna be pushing
very involved.
Yeah,
in
but
playing.
you're assuming they're pushing original arcade games. They're not. They're actually be pushing large games. And when I say large games, I mean games where you have 4 or 8 cabinets hooked together, and they use slide cards, the magnetic cards, which actually store information on them, and it gets you to come back and improve your racing horse or your race car or your Gundam, what have you.
It also allows you to get ripped off more. Oh, this game costs 3.72 credits. What?
Welcome
no,
to Dave
that's
and Buster's.
different. That's different, though. It's not talking about actually playing with money off the cards, but for actually getting cards out of the machine that give you personalized information.
Yeah, and you can actually bring that card back and improve upon your prior character or vehicle or what have you. I mean, I'm addicted to the horse racing game. I think World Championship Derby is just awesome.
I miss tokens.
Yeah, me too. Except when I had to clear them out of a Coin change.
out of Mortal Kombat 1 like 5 times a day.
No, the one that I always had a problem with was Stun Runner. That one, for some reason, I always had to unjam that one. And Daytona.
Before we go on, Steve and myself, Murdock, we used to both work at arcades.
I never would have guessed that.
Yeah,
Well, we're enlightening the audience.
pretty much.
So,
Ironically, at the arcades, I played pinball the most.
yeah,
mostly 'cause nobody
if
was
the
playing 'em.
pinball machines at the arcade I worked at weren't broken.
Oh, that's because
half
I
the time.
fixed them in order to make them
No,
work.
no, they had someone.
Yeah.
They had someone else do the pinball machines. It's like,
You
okay,
know what
you just work the
pinballs were at
arcade stuff.
arcades for, right? They were so that parents had nothing else to do, could go play something while their kid was playing an arcade game. Kids did not play pinball.
I'm going to beat Akari Warriors. Okay, I'll be here playing Addams Family.
Yeah.
Well, my
I
dad
still think
used to.
pinball is the best reason to go to an arcade.
Well, yeah.
It's the
Depending
original
on
arcade,
the
actually.
pinball
I will
that you
say right
actually
now
got.
that
Yeah.
Pinbot ruled my world.
Twilight
Pinball
Zone.
was the best
Twilight Zone.
pinball ever
Twilight
made.
Zone,
Twilight
Xenon
Zone.
was
Adam's
awesome.
Family.
Actually, I think Pinbot,
Addams Family was awesome.
Theater of Illusions.
Pinbot 2 was actually better than the original.
Yeah.
Or you could just play Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom and just get or not, it was Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, and you could be no good at pinball at all and hit 150 million points.
Actually, in the last 10 years, they came out with some pretty unique pinball machines. Medieval Madness had to be one of the coolest I've played in a long time. That game was absolutely hilarious. And the way they have found the ability to mix the pinball with the LCD at the bottom there and kind of interact between the two more or less, especially with, I think there was a Star Wars pinball that did the same thing,
There
but
was.
even to a better degree. It was more like the 3D, I think it was Star Wars 3D pinball or something to that effect. But yeah, it was a really unique game too, and that was right at the unfortunately, it was right at the death of pinballs for the most part. I mean, a lot of companies are pulling out
and you say the
going
death
bankrupt.
of pinball. There is only one company in the world that makes pinball machines anymore.
It's not Midway.
No,
I think they
no,
went
I
bankrupt.
believe it's
Is it Gottlieb?
either Gottlieb or Stern or one of those.
Okay.
But only one
read
company makes them.
read an article
Yeah.
about them a year ago.
So speaking of revitalizing the U.S. arcade industry, didn't that happen when they decided to put bars in arcades and ended
Well,
up with
I
Dave
wasn't-
and Buster's and
but
all
does
that?
So we
it-
just ended up
Yeah.
with beer-soaked video games.
Yeah,
Yeah.
drunk adults trying to relive their childhood.
I mean, really, even when you look at the arcades that are happening in bars, a lot of it's ticket games still.
And the thing with
All the really great new video games come out on home systems now.
Yeah. And here's the thing. I mean, with arcades, when in the 80s before the video game crash, and even arguably after the video game crash, the thing with arcades was that the technology in the arcade machines were a lot better than the stuff in the home systems.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But now
it's
the
the
home
opposite.
systems are equal or better than the arcade counterparts. So
Well, they're definitely more economical for the
Yeah.
people making
Well,
the
it
games
is
because
over
they don't
here,
need to
but
have
in
custom
Japan,
hardware.
they're still doing in Japan. They're still releasing a lot of games on arcade first.
Well-
They're in a test market, and then they eventually go to console. It's generally 6 months to a year later.
Well, I
but-
think
But
part
do
of
they
it
have
is
to make
just-
custom hardware for that every time they do those, or they use them on existing
no,
Most of
they're
it's
systems?
off
using
JAMA
existing
stuff.
systems. Yeah,
Yeah.
mini
It's off
boards
JAMA,
and
Naomi.
Well, they've got things like the Type X system that's a PC.
Yeah.
There's a couple of those now that
Yeah.
are basically PCs in a cabinet.
But I think a lot of it is just
which
a
explains
cultural.
why it comes out so fast.
A lot of it is
Yeah.
also a cultural difference. Is that Japan very small, centralized, America very spread out. For
Yeah.
us to get to the nearest arcade, it
Well,
would
it used
take
to be
us-
getting us
well,
to the
it
mall.
Used to be.
You know,
But
But now
I mean,
every
in
mall
Japan,
had one or
literally,
two
they're
arcades.
everywhere. But also, I think part of the reason from the for the death of the U.S. arcade, or at least the temporary death of the U.S. arcade, is that in Japan they have people that do nothing but take care of arcade machines and
Yeah.
make sure that they're working 100% of the time. Now, as you and I know, when we do coin collecting and stuff like that, a lot of the stuff that we do didn't involve a lot of just repair work. Sometimes we had to get someone from the outside to come in and fix the machines for us.
only if there's
Yeah,
a
you
bad
have the
board, though.
expertise.
I mean, I don't know
But
about where you
know
worked,
how
but
long
basically,
some of that would have taken.
Well,
yeah, but did you replace like cap kits and bad transformers? And
well, that's
power
what I mean.
supplies?
Well, that's what, if you had extra parts, you could do it.
You could.
But you usually didn't have extra
Yeah.
parts was the problem.
No.
I mean, if it was a board thing or a power supply thing like that, then you had to wait. But
And-
pretty much, I mean, at least where I worked, if it was something that you could replace or you could resolder or you could find a spring underneath a trash bag in the back room somewhere.
See, we never had like extra parts. So if we had a joystick, it'd be like out of order for like
no, we had
a week or two before we got a new joystick.
we had half
It
a
was
shop with
insane.
spare parts and tools.
You called yourself an arcade.
Yeah, it was a true arcade. Half the machines were broken.
Well-
or the DeGoss was off, or
Yeah.
Hey, but did you have bumper cars?
no.
We had bumper cars. It was pretty awesome.
Now that's an arcade.
And we had pizza.
Well,
And the best breadsticks I've ever
Wasn't
had
Chuck
to
E.
date.
Cheese?
It was kind of like, it was one of the Chuck E. Cheese competitors in Minnesota.
Oh, was it the other mouse? The
No. Well, okay,
Yeah.
in Minnesota, so here's a little bit of regional history here. In Minnesota, there were 3 major arcade chains that had pizza parlors associated with it. There was Showbiz Pizza.
Yeah,
There
Showbiz,
was,
the bear.
well, it had the Gorilla. It had the
Yeah.
Gorilla, animatronic Gorilla. And then it had there was Circus Pizza, which is unassociated with Circus,
Yeah.
and then Chuck E. Cheese. And in Minnesota, all except for Circus went out of business by the late 90s.
Wow.
And then Circus went out of business, I think, around 2000. I think it worked at one of the last ones that actually made a profit. But and the funny thing was the Circus Pizza used to have its own animatronic stuff, but when Showbiz went out of, or when Circus used to have its own animatronic stuff. When Showbiz went out of business, they bought their animatronics. They were better than the Circus Pizza ones. And so you'd walk in, if
Like
you'd
a
ever been
bad
to all one,
Simpsons episode.
and you walked in, you're like, what the, huh?
Yeah.
suddenly all your nightmares came true.
It was just
was.
the opposite out here because I remember Showbiz was the last one in existence, and right when they were about to go out of business, suddenly I don't know who did it. Somebody bought the Chuck E. Cheese name, went and bought all the Showbizes, and changed it back to Chuck E. Cheese, and they're still out there now.
I know Chuck E. Cheese has been sold up to someone else some time ago, but the person who actually started the Chuck E. Cheese chain was Nolan Bushnell, the founder of Atari.
Well, interestingly,
Here.
that you mentioned that, I was just reading an article about that, how that business model has worked much better, and is probably the same reason that Dave & Buster's works so well, is because while
Yeah.
the arcade machines have never been profitable on their own, or at least haven't been for a long time, when you can add the markup that you get off food and drinks to that, it actually works out much better.
No, I think that's why they associated pizza parlors with the
money
video
on the
arcades.
arcades after they've had a few drinks.
And I never
Because,
get
like,
tired of watching uncoordinated white people play games.
They don't have Aladdin's Castle here, do they?
They did. They're,
they?
they're out of
Yeah.
existence now.
Wow.
They
Yeah,
still
well,
exist in Minnesota in malls. But they're
Yeah.
they're mostly ticket games, except for the fighting games that the Hmong guys
They had
go in
one
and play.
here in a mall, and then the others were like in strip malls, or they were just outside of the mall. But they were always near a mall, though. It was kind
Well,
of
yeah, 'cause that's where
concentrated.
people need to
here
go.
in Denver we had Funplex.
Yeah,
We had
Funplex is still here.
Boardwalk USA.
yeah. There was 3 boardwalks at one time.
Yeah.
That was pure arcade games. Nothing else in there, though.
Yeah.
Funplex is actually more like a Chuck E. Cheese in the sense you could buy food, and there was kids games and the
Wasn't there like a
ballroom
mini golf?
Yeah, there was a mini golf. I
Bowling.
think there was
It was
even
like
bowling.
it was
yeah.
like celebrities.
Yeah. Oh, and celebrities. Yeah, they were forever.
I actually played a very large amount of arcade games at the golf course that our youth league was at. Because they had Road Blasters, Double Dragon 2.
Yeah.
What else did they have?
flashbacks,
Operation
too, of
Wolf
going
they
to
had
play
there.
The
Black Tiger at a 7-Eleven.
oh, well, no, that too. That was up the street. No, the little cars you drove. You actually went to the track to drive these around, and they had
You mean the go-karts?
go-karts. Yeah, I actually remember going to go-karts.
Oh, you
down
mean like
on
the
58th
RC
and
racer ones?
25, and I actually spent more time in there in the arcade than I did out in the cars. I think it's partially due to just going and having to be in a line of like 30 people waiting to get in a car too. But
I also feel
had
the
some of
need
the cooler
to
arcade games.
add that, the animatronic animals, they had the air compressor that ran them. That thing.
Oh, you mean like the original Street Fighter 1 arcade machine?
Well, no. These were the and the
All pneumatic.
the compressors look like gigantic iron lungs. And they have a drainage valve from the water that it extracts from the air as it's compressing it.
Yeah.
And That thing, I don't know what it was. I don't know about any else's compressor anywhere else in the world, but ours leaked green water, and it would scum up on the top. And we had to drain. We had big buckets, big plastic buckets. We had to drain of these, and there was no drain in the back in the shop. You had to bring them back to the janitor closet, which was all the way across the arcade. So you were walking through the arcade with these big buckets of green scum in your pants. And people are like,
what the hell are you doing back there?
What
video game uses that?
We pour this into the Mortal Kombat one when we turn the green on.
So anyway,
you're hiding a mermaid.
back on topic.
This also shows that there are still niche markets for arcade games. I mean, seriously, who hasn't seen a golden tea machine sitting in
in
a bar somewhere?
What I would like to mention is the fundamental shift in the types of arcade games that we've been seeing. Back in the day, it was a lot of just like shooters and
fighters.
I mean, fighting games were still pretty
adventure.
It was the basic genres that existed at that point.
But
could
now,
be played in 5
now
minutes
a lot of the games require you to actually do something physical, like either dance or fire a gun,
snowboarding,
or drive,
soccer.
or
There's even sword games where you're swinging
or
a
punching,
sword,
or the sword game. So I think that there's been a big fundamental shift in the types of games, and this may add to the rebirth of the games of the arcade. Even though I personally don't care for games.
I don't really think arcades ever died. I think a lot of them dropped out, but I don't think the arcade itself died. I think the classic idea of the arcade died. I mean, like you're saying, they pushed into these physical games where it got people more into the game, and they were doing something where they were more interactive with it. So,
and that was probably what was needed to.
Yeah, I think that's the only thing that's kept it going, really.
Well, they have them have equipment that you can't buy at home.
Yeah, exactly.
That's actually a very good point. Is that these are things that you can't,
which was
it's like
the whole lure of the arcade in the first place. Is that
as much
Double Dragon on your
NES
didn't look as good as your Double Dragon on your.
You will never be able to really duplicate the
these
experience
arcade
with,
games are huge too. I mean, they sell from anywhere between $3,000 to $10,000 for one of these games, depending on how sophisticated it is. I know the Silent Scopes were.
That's what I was going to say. Silent Scope. You'll never be able to duplicate the exact arcade.
They tried to on the Xbox, and it wasn't the same. You can't do that.
And I think that's what they're really trying to do.
And you're looking at like $300 minimum for something like that.
Even Dance Dance Revolution, which is hugely popular, you'll never be able to duplicate it exactly on a home's console.
Actually, DDR is popular enough. Yes, you can get a steel pad with a bar if you want.
But you'll pay for it.
Yes, but you will be able to. I mean,
few arcade games that's actually translatable to a console, though. I mean, the rest
of
them are just too
that's
complex.
Like the low end of the collector market for that. It's like, you could own your own arcade machine too. Are you going to put up the money for it?
Another good point about that too is that was a popular enough game that maybe they pushed to find a way to put out a cheap pad and bar, and it was like, hey, look, if there's enough kids playing this, we can do this on a console. Yeah.
Here's a question I want to.
I mean, before Guitar Hero came out, if you're looking at the Guitar Freaks machine, you're wondering, man, I'm never going to see that at home.
Here's a question: do you think this might be Nintendo's angle with the Wii controller? Is that they're trying to get into like what the arcades are doing right now?
What would they be reproducing in the arcade that exists right now?
Well, no, they're actually bringing the arcade home and cutting out the middleman, so to speak.
Yeah, but what are they bringing home?
The Wii controller does work a lot like a light gun.
Well, we've had light guns for a long time.
Like a sword and like a grappling hook.
Also like the sword games that they have out there. I mean, it's different, but the technologies that they're using there are present in several of the arcade games that exist now. And that might have been where the idea came from, maybe.
It's bits and... It's wee bits and pieces of arcade games.
So anyway, there'll probably be a rebirth of the U.S. arcade, but not as we saw it back in the 80s.
Yeah, it's not the classic arcade with pinball machines.
I don't know that I'd expect to see a bunch of new ones coming up. That's about what Sega was saying about pushing into existing ones, I find to be much more likely.
Yeah,
plus they do have some new ones coming out.
It's so prohibitively expensive to get those arcade machines in, and you'll see such a long time before you see any profits.
but that's also like John was saying earlier. That's where places like Dave and Buster's, Red and Jerry's come in.
You have to do more than just the games.
Yeah, they've got a collage of things like billiards, the bars, the food in there, even places where they have live music in there. And I mean, they're making all those things work together and make money
live music
in the
would
end
really
run.
annoy me trying to play a game.
Well, no, that's in a separate room. But the point being is they're mixing these things together to stay in business, make money, and still please the overall crowd. And it seems to be working.
But then again, I mean, if you go with the whole here's a preset kit that you can upgrade and do arcades, the barrier to entry is not that great then because you can reuse.
You mean like
cabs.
a Neo Geo?
Well, like that, except more powerful.
Yeah.
But it's. Before, the reason it was so expensive to get an arcade cab was because it was custom hardware every time.
Yeah, you had to buy a whole new cabinet.
Well, you could sometimes reuse the cabinets, but you had to buy. I mean, the circuit boards were screwed to the inside of the cabs.
I mean, the Neo Geo
hasn't changed.
You are right. The Neo Geo did change that, and the JAMA standard did change that because then you could just have a generic cabinet, and all you had to do was just change the board.
I think Neo Geo was the turning point for that.
But I think with a lot of these games that require a lot of these specialized inputs, it's going to be you're going to have to end up buying new cabinets to house a lot of this stuff. And I can understand what's like something like a racing game. You could probably change out, say, a board or something.
There are certain cabinets out there that actually, if you buy the large cabinet with a separated console, you can change out a steering wheel on it. You can put a gun on it.
You should be able to do it
because what you're saying here is what Neo Geo did is basically brought the console idea to the arcade, which is the cat's already out of the bag at that point.
Well, yeah, but they made it easier for everybody out there that had an arcade to afford one single cabinet, put anywhere from 1 to 6 games in, depending on which one they bought.
Play games that are of the exact same type that you can play at home now.
Well, now, yeah, but back then they didn't have them in the console form. The AES didn't come out until several years after
you could get it at home. You just had to pay $900 for a Neo Geo.
Exactly. not to mention the fact the games
are like $300.
No. The games, when they first came out in MVS and Standard, the cheapest I've ever seen one released for is $1,800. Okay. And they go upward to $3,000 because they know that the people buying their games are going to be an arcade somewhere that's going to actually turn that money over, and they're going to make their $3,000 in a couple of months or 6 months.
Actually used to rent Neo Geo games from one of the very small independent ones.
That was another brilliant idea. They also realized that not everybody could, in Japan at least, that not everybody could actually afford a whole MVS game. So they actually had rental places, and that's why if you ever look in an MVS cabinet and you find a white card versus the black, green, orange, whatever the other colors were, you'll see it say SNKG on it, which was a rental cart that you actually went and rented for a period of time, made your money on, and then returned just like a book or a video. Okay. They were really revolutionary in that.
All right,
But basically what I'm saying here about this is that once you have a genericized arcade machine where you've got, you can plug in different games to it and you're using the same set of controllers for them, basically you've got a home console in an arcade system.
It's just a very expensive console, but
but it's not doing anything you can't do at home.
Right. Well, but you could still have wacky control schemes and inputs or whatever. All you need is a USB connector to hey, we bought the expansion thing so that we can hook up a fly fisher thing to it or whatever, and it's probably going to be more expensive than somebody could afford to buy at home.
Okay. I'm going to go on to the next topic as this topic has run too long. Okay, our next topic is we're going to talk about game and system pricing and how much is too much. Now, Sony's been a little arrogant when it comes to the pricing of their...
a wee bit.
Just a wee.
Yeah, just a wee bit arrogant.
Too late.
3 wees, pretty much, plus tax.
So
wow, that's some sort of weird Japanese tentacle beast, isn't it?
It is.
So we want to know how
3 by 3
is too much. I mean, let's be honest. Is $5.99 too much for a game system?
Me?
No,
except we look around this table, $3.99 is too much.
Yeah.
When I'm shooting money out my ass, it'll be affordable. But until that day, that's too much.
Well, that's not going to stop people from buying it. It's just the hardcore Sony zealots are the ones that are.
There's enough of them out there. I'm sure they'll sell pretty much every system.
I mean, I think it says something that none of us are hardcore enough to have bought a 360.
Apparently.
Yeah. Well, it's not necessarily hardcore. I think it's just more of just wanting to show off. That the fact that they have a PlayStation 3 and nothing else on it.
Little
they
Jimmy's
can,
got
like,
a
stare
PS3
at
and nobody
the-
else on the block does, so they all have to come and look at his PS3.
They can just stare at the
You know?
BIOS screen for
Yeah.
5 years. Ooh, it's pretty. Oh,
It
that's
has
nice.
a browser.
What are you playing?
What does it do?
Well, I don't think so because little Jimmy can't afford a PS3.
No, that's why he gets Rich Daddy to buy it for him.
Yeah, but they're-
Nothing will make
aren't
me
they-
happy this
The
Christmas.
people who are the early adopters are going to be people with a lot of disposable income.
Yeah.
And the ones that will be
get to play
bitching
it, they're
the
going to be
first
purely
and the
incidental.
loudest.
Yeah, yeah.
They're going to be.
there will be that rich crowd that goes out and is able
Well,
to
yeah,
just
there's
buy it
always
and
going to
doesn't
be that.
Yeah,
care,
but
you know.
it's so not the core of the market.
No,
I mean, the
no.
core of the market is looking at this going,
The
you
core of
wanna,
the market is buying PS2s still.
yeah, I mean, they're looking at the price tag on these next gen machines
you
and
get down
going,
to $100.
yeah,
Ooh.
right.
Well, the only system that they don't seem to be complaining about the price for, other than the systems that are out, is the Wii.
Well, yeah, but
Who's except also you're talking about. Man, the Nintendo fan community just spooges over everything
Well-
and
Well,
anything.
But
yeah,
it's
but
because it's
ex-
affordable.
yeah, but
It's never
accept,
been expensive.
accepting that part of the fan community. I mean, you just look at the numbers. You look at the numbers on the price tag, and I mean, really, it's no comparison when you look at it.
Well, except
When you look
even
on the
then,
shelf,
the GameCube was cheaper than
Yeah.
the PS2 and the Xbox, and it didn't help.
yeah, but it wasn't that much cheaper than it is now.
Yeah, but you also got to look at the Nintendo ideology too, which means it takes them 6 months to a year to put out a game, whereas other consoles are putting out 10, 20 games in a year.
That's
Well,
Nintendo's
that's
fault.
because
That's
they've got
Nintendo's own
third-party
problem.
support. They're
Well.
not trying to do it all themselves.
Yeah.
Well, yeah,
That's
but
just the thing
I mean,
with the
really,
masses, they try
the-
to do too much of it
and
themselves.
the
It's
delta
very-
between the consoles now, between the Nintendo console and everybody else's console, is much larger than it was last gen.
And not only
Well,
that,
that's also, though, because the Wii isn't really on a par with the new consoles.
Yeah,
that are
but you know what? The people, the mainstream people who are going to be buying these, aren't going to care. They're not going to pay
I
$600
think Chris
for a
wants to
console.
say something before he
And-
bursts.
and with the Wii, and you said you were talking about third-party support, and there have been some reports from some third-party companies that are saying, you know what, and Sega was one of them that said, you know what, we can't afford to develop on the PlayStation 3 because it's just too expensive.
Yeah,
With the
yeah.
development kits and the fact that we would have to charge, $60-$70
Not only that,
for
but
the
there's
software
also
to
more
make
old
a profit.
school. There's more.
That's almost making these third-party companies want to go to.
No, that's exactly
Yeah.
what it's doing. In fact, there's companies too, like SNK, which do nothing but pretty much two-dimensional games, and their games are not wanted on the new PS3 and the new Xbox. So they're
They
actually
also
going.
don't sell very well.
Well, no, they were actually denied by PlayStation for putting games on. They said we don't want your games on there.
That
More or
was
less
in
'cause
the
they
early days of the PS2. At this point,
In the early days, they're still putting them out on the PS2. What are you talking about?
well, you're saying they
Samurai
were
Shodown
denied,
5
right?
Tenkaichi, or Samurai Shodown Tenkaichi just came out like 3-4
Yeah, but
months
keep
ago.
in mind
Yeah,
that
so that's what you're saying is they were
not-
denied previously, and they're not being anymore.
No, they're being denied on the new systems. They're actually being told we don't want your two-dimensional, rehashes or remakes.
We would rather see three-dimensional rehashes
Yeah.
of two-dimensional games.
Exactly.
that we've played
So you're
before.
going to see things. That's why Metal Slug the anthology is going to be coming out on the Wii. Several other games by SNK are going to be out on the Wii because they're accepting that technology. They don't.
Except, is there anything that would prevent these same games from coming out on the PS2? They're not technology limited at all.
No.
are they?
In fact, a lot of them already have come out on the PS2.
Yeah.
That's just the point, though. It's not the company itself that's saying we don't want it out there. It's the actual console company, in this case Sony or Xbox, saying, no, we don't want it on our new console. We don't need your games.
And Nintendo's like, bring it on.
And that was the same way with the PS2 originally. I remember when it first came out, they said, no, we want nothing but 3D games. And about a year later, when they weren't selling shit, supposedly, here's all these like flat 2D games coming out all of a sudden. Hey, at least we got games on our console. I mean, it just
Well, Sony was like that.
they're always stuck up that way.
Sony was like that when the PlayStation 1 came out, and they're like, oh, no one's going to play RPGs. We're not going to release any RPGs on our system. And then they're finally like, okay, all right, we've listened. We're going to release, RPG, and we're going to release Beyond the Beyond, the worst RPG ever.
So, with this history of mistakes, how is it Sony has managed to completely dominate the market?
We're not saying it's a mistake. We're just saying they're driving some companies to go to their competitors, and that's going to help their competitors.
Yeah,
in
and
the end.
the fact that they're their base system is $100 more than the Xbox 360 with the hard drive and everything.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the PS3 pricing is absolutely ridiculous. And it's incredibly too high. And also, I mean, we're going to be seeing for a while, it's all going to be about when the price drops are and when people can actually start affording to buy.
And I think Sony's kind of screwing themselves, and it's unfortunate, but they're
Well,
caught in the
they've
middle
been on
because,
the top for so long.
Well, not only that, but they're kind of caught in the middle because here they are being pushed to put out a new console with new technology, yet the technology's so new, nobody can really afford it, so they're having to push people. They're having to push that technology on people and make them pay for it.
Well,
and it's making this new system cost so much. It's it's going to be a year
Well,
from now.
I think Sony's
really
also so arrogant that they just think that people are going to buy it regardless of how much it costs.
The arrogance of Sony for this is not actually that they're just picking some random number out of there. It's that they think people want a Blu-ray player.
Well,
Yeah.
Which is not true.
There's really nothing forcing them
That's
to
what I'm
put
saying,
out a new
technology-wise.
console now other than themselves. I mean, seriously. Just because everybody in the past, just because Sega and Nintendo always seem to kind of put out a console at the same time, and then Sega, Sony, and Nintendo put out one at kind of the same time, and they kind of stood in lockstep for the next gen type thing. There's no reason that they would have to do it again. It's not like they're not making any money off the PS2. They could keep letting the PS2 make money for a while and let Xbox sell its incredibly expensive, alternative,
it's the drive
and let
of
the
the
Wii.
competition that's pushing them.
No, I don't think the competition really needs to push them anywhere because the competition's way behind them.
That may
what
be it,
I'll
though,
try
is
and
Sony is
positioning for
trying
the next
too
5
hard.
years. Because usually we've got a 5-year cycle on consoles, and this one's been all fucked up because the 360 came out a year early.
Right. Well, I mean, that's what I'm saying. I mean, it's just because that's the way it was in the past, and you had to have one out at the same time.
Yeah.
They're not really thinking out of the box. They're thinking, well,
Crushing the box and making it small.
well, they are. They're so set in the concept that we got to put out a system, but we also have to think out this far in order to be expandable for the next,
I think
gen.
Sony is
whatever.
This is something that was brought up on another website. I can't remember what it was, but I think they stated they believe Sony is pushing the Blu-ray player because it's the next technology in DVD type.
Well, it's also their own proprietary format,
Well,
isn't
yeah,
it?
I was going to get to that
Yeah.
as soon as
They
I finished
really
here.
want Blu-ray to win.
They want to have that format out there because they'll control all licensing, they'll control all rights, and then
they
people
don't
have
control
to.
all licensing and all rights. There's a huge alliance behind Blu-ray, just like there
Well,
is
yeah,
in
but
HD
they
DVD.
are going to be the first one that puts a Blu-ray player out there. Now, even if they take a loss at putting this system in a household, they lose, say, $200 or $300 on a PS3. It doesn't matter because now those households all have a Blu-ray player in there, and that gives them the ability to
and
watch
no one's
Blu-ray
going to care because
movies.
people are just going to buy stuff on DVD. It's like, well, why should I spend
Well,
Yeah,
$20
exactly.
more on a
No, but
Blu-ray
that's what I'm
disc
saying,
than-
though. I think Sony's willing to take the hit on the gaming side to have the technology available and in the home.
The
So
technology
this is-
doesn't do any good unless people
Well, no.
use it.
We know
Well,
that,
this
and
is
I know
a lot
that
of forward-looking risk-taking.
Well, and
is.
I
Yeah,
mean,
I don't-
Sony's never
while
done that
while,
before.
while
Sony's-
that's undoubtedly the strategy that they're trying to use, the problem is that they seem to be overlooking the fact that they're not going to sell so many of these that their market penetration is going to be worthwhile.
I think their biggest mistake is that they believe America is a rich company, and only about the top 5% of America is rich.
I
and
don't
only
know,
the
I believe
top
that
5.
America is a rich company. Most of us are just poor employees.
Well, no, I think
Hey, who's doing janitorial work in America? Oh, some guy named Halliburton.
No, but you
He's
don't-
new here.
But you see what I'm saying, though? They look at us as being a rich country, and it's not true. I mean, only the top 5
Well,
or 10% is going to be able to afford their system.
Not
and
rich
it's going-
enough to buy their system anyway.
Yeah, well, and is going to be able to afford the technology afterwards. I don't know about you, but I've actually seen an HD or a Blu-ray movie.
Which of the current generation consoles did you buy at launch?
PS2. I actually bought that on launch day. I camped out the day before, and lo and behold, I had to wait like 3 or 4 months before I had 2 or 3 games to really play on there. And that was the error I found after that.
But we've learned now.
Yeah,
haven't
and
we?
the biggest thing they had pushing back then was the fact it had a DVD player in it, And it turned out to be a crap player for most people that ended up burning their system out anyways. Mine still plays faithfully, and I only, watch maybe one movie every 3 months on it, God forbid. But, I'm looking at this, and I'm looking also at, not Blu-ray, but like the HD TV technology. I've actually seen a movie on HD TV. And I got to tell you, it didn't look that much better than a regular DVD. Not enough to make me shell out the money to buy an HD TV player.
That's the thing I have with Blu-ray and
DVD
HD.
player.
It's just like, where's the difference?
It's
My
not big
human
enough.
eyeball can only see so many pixels.
Well, it
Yeah,
would have
and
it would have
it's
been
Human
frame
eyeball
rate.
can tell the difference.
it,
Yes.
it would have
but
been.
You're not human.
Well, it would have been. It's only useful in things where really small details matter. Like, for example, we were watching VH1 Classic this last Friday, and we were watching a concert, and there was a guy with a keyboard who had an Apple PowerBook that he was using for some of his sequencing stuff, and it had something on it. We couldn't read it because the resolution was too low. So, okay, so if you really want that level of detail, that's great, but is that really going to detract from your viewing experience?
No.
Probably not.
Well,
Yeah.
I don't know, except also,
I know.
again, we look 2 or 3 years down the road, and HD DVDs are going to be much cheaper. And, I mean, you're going to set the Wii next to, like, the PS3, and you're going to be looking at the resolution difference, and if they can manage to get that price difference down further, then it'll be much more competitive.
Yeah, but the Wii doesn't play any kind of movies. It isn't an
And
HD
that was talking
TV.
about movies. The Wii doesn't even do HD TV gaming, though.
Yeah.
That's Nintendo's. That's always been Nintendo's angle, is that they didn't want to make a DVD movie player. They didn't want to concentrate on that. They wanted to do games. They figured, well, there's already stuff that plays all that stuff, and they weren't
Yeah.
really concerned with
And there was
HD
absolutely
TV.
nothing about we want to do a strangely shaped disc that will be harder for people to pirate. Nothing about that.
That's always been Nintendo.
Yeah, but they haven't
Nintendo's
pushed
always
for-
been that way, though.
They didn't see the need to make it into a multimedia console, though. It's just about gaming. Nintendo's about gaming. They're not about making it super complicated.
And that's the thing that's
or-
kind of annoying me about this generation is the companies have this need to make a console that
PC.
does a media PC.
Yeah, they're trying to-
It's like,
Well,
all right,
it's,
I
it's
already
not even they have a need. It's that they've got all this hardware there already, and they're looking at it going, how can we use this incredibly powerful box
Yeah, in fact,
with a
some
hard
of them
drive
have
on it?
$600 worth of hardware sitting there.
So
Or
anyway,
more.
so how much is too much? $5.99 is too much.
Well,
but we-
$4.99 is
Yeah,
Too much.
$4.99.
Really, if you're going over $300,
is too
I'm
much.
not even thinking
And
about it.
For games,
What was the
we're
last
talking about
system
like
you saw come out for $5.99? It was a 3DO.
The 3DO.
And it failed miserably, didn't it? And it took only
no,
about a year.
No, the last system I saw that came out for that much was the Saturn.
Was the Saturn ever $5.99? I don't
No,
remember
also
the
need to
Saturn-
look through
I
that
think the Saturn was,
inflation-adjusted
what,
price chart,
400?
too.
because I remember
Yeah.
the 3DO actually releasing it $5.99,
Like,
and
yeah.
that was their own
You
player.
remember when we were talking about the inflation-adjusted price chart, too? 'Cause
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
where we need to be comparing.
All right.
Yeah,
well,
but still,
moving on to the
I
next
mean,
game topic.
It's
Let's
still
say
really
it's
expensive.
a lot, and
So
inflation
moving on to the
adjusted,
next,
still a lot.
Topic, as we're kind of running a little late. Next, we're going to go into our game discussion, and our first topic for game discussion is we are going to go over our greatest video game moments ever. And I know Brian and I have a few.
We still have them
but,
occasionally.
who wants to start, or should I start since I was the one? That
I was
brought
the
up
first
silly
one on the block to kill Ganon.
Let it
All right,
be known,
all right,
neighbors!
Steve, you want to go into
That was my Legend of Zelda.
You go like
Well,
running
I-
out into the
this time.
street
I know
saying,
what-
I killed the
I know
mighty
what
Ganon, behold!
I know what it was, but
But-
can you describe in brief detail that glorious day?
The glorious day when we actually got the Nintendo Power Strategy Guide and figured out how to get through the last couple dungeons, and we all sat there and we tried to kill Ganon, and I don't think that anybody could do it, but I did it. That was the only time I shined in my life.
And on that day, you were a god.
On that day, I was a god.
I'm
So, yeah.
the god, I'm the god.
So yeah, and then we realized, oh crap, we have to do it again.
Yeah, with whole new dungeons in different places.
No, you realized that you had to do it again because
Yeah.
nobody else
Yeah,
could do
everybody
it.
else was leaving.
But no, that was a one-time ability. You can't do that again.
So that's the only time I was really good at anything.
That was a great moment.
Anyway,
Cheese,
so
I'm
that's
down named Cheese.
Steve's greatest moment was rescuing Princess Zelda,
Well,
beating Ganon.
kind of.
Rescuing the princess.
Rescuing her
over
before I
and
had to do
over.
it again.
Yeah.
Her bodyguards suck.
So
Weren't they
who wants
toads?
to go next for the greatest
Princess
gaming
Toadstool.
moment?
Yeah. No, but weren't they the little toads, the bodyguards, little like half her size?
I don't know. I don't
Not
remember.
really the bodyguard.
All right. So, Brian, your greatest video game moments?
Oh, God, I think back. I think some of the best ones have actually been with you, just playing Street Fighter 3rd Generation.
Well, I am cool like that.
Yeah. Well, I'm thinking that's
want
more
your
about the
gaming-
games.
you
My
want your
greatest
gaming
gaming
sessions to
moments
have
were with
meaning
you,
to
Murdock.
Play against me.
Street Fighter 3rd Strike is probably the...
What do you mean Third Strike? We've been playing Street Fighter since
Well,
Street Fighter
since
2.
way back in the day, but I mean, the best ones I think came from 3rd Strike. I mean, they've just been... That is like the pinnacle of Street
No,
Fighter.
you
It's
know
got
what's
the
been
best
really
things
cool
mixed in
when
it.
we played? When we do the
The counters.
the dynamic battle from Alpha, where we played Ryu and Ken, and we
Yeah.
just went through the game together.
Oh, yeah. That was a neat mode, too. They've really done a lot with that. And it just... I never get tired of Street Fighter 3rd Strike. I think that is just, like, the best Street Fighter ever.
Any other great game moments?
Ooh. There's been a lot of great games. None I can think of right now.
John, great game moments.
I think
back to
the
me.
last game moment that I was actually proud of, wasn't just me kicking back on the couch enjoying half an hour, was when I got the gold screen on Soul Calibur. I really felt like I'd put a lot of effort into that, finally made it through that last mission, which was so painful. You have to beat like 6 guys in a minute.
Yeah.
And sure, you get a time bonus for each one, but it hurts so bad.
Yeah,
It wasn't
have to
on
know your
Dirt
character
Jockey?
well.
And
It wasn't on Dirt Jockey.
and it hurts doubly for me because I had the Japanese version of the game, so I had to figure out what to do. Because it's like, okay, I'm supposed to do what? Huh? I'm playing.
But no, I
Just
felt
keep
pretty
killing
proud
things.
when I got that gold screen.
Cool. Anything else?
Well, that's the last one I can remember.
Okay.
I remember when I successfully managed to actually arrest somebody in Police Quest without getting killed. That was pretty good. Because you could get killed so many times doing a traffic stop in Police Quest.
Well,
you had to follow that police manual. To
Yeah,
the
you
letter.
did, to the letter.
I have just a couple of great video game moments. The first one, actually, and true story, this was at an arcade over at the college that Brian and I went to. And they had Magician Lord in the Neo Geo cabinet. And I was playing Magician Lord, and I was doing really, really well. And then I died. And I was down to my last quarter. So when I continued and died very quickly because it was on a stage that was very difficult for me to beat, I had gathered a crowd of people watching me play. And Brian remembers this.
Yeah.
And the crowd starts giving me quarters just so that they could see the end of the game.
Yeah.
It's like, here, keep playing. I'm like, okay.
Then did you put on your power glove and...
No, I didn't quite do my power glove, but it was still very cool.
I used to do something kind of like that with Silent Scope after the first one came out. I went from, after playing it at the same campus we went to, where I learned the master of the game, I would go to every place I went to that I saw a Silent Scope. I'd just stop, take 15 minutes, go through the training mode, and I'd get a perfect. I get 100% killing every target under the time limit and setting the new high score for time, doing it the quickest. And I always enjoyed going in and doing that. It didn't matter where I was at, as long as the gun was calibrated and you could sit down and do it, And occasionally I'd turn around and see some people that just kind of looked at me and wondered why, because I'm a taller person, I got to kind of squat down when you grab that gun, but I'd get into it and just click, 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 game over. Put in my name and walk away, and that was,
the
my
other
little moment.
The other great game moment I do want to add was actually kind of a small game moment. This was at a local anime club. Huh?
I'm sorry, that sounded like a small gay moment.
A small gay moment.
Game moment. This wasn't a Wii related.
Is he peeking out the closet? No.
But I was at a local anime club here in Denver Anime International, and this was several years ago.
Oh,
and
that's a club we've never heard of.
Quiet you.
What's the
Totally
way,
unfamiliar
bud,
with
man?
But what had happened was that I had just gotten Radiant Silvergun, and I had brought my Saturn and my monitor at the club and just started playing it. And probably one of the best video game comments I've ever gotten was when I was playing Radiant Silvergun. A woman, Dion, her name, she was watching me play Radiant Silvergun, and she watches me fight the final boss, Ziga. and I'm dodging like all these diamonds. And for those of you who've seen the game, you kind of know what I'm talking about. She just looks at me and goes, "Are you human?" I'm like, wow, that's the greatest compliment I've ever gotten.
Yeah, I remember that takes me back to one moment too. I really remember well. It was a while after Dr. Mario came out. The original Dr. Mario with the
on
pills.
The NES?
Yeah, on the NES. That was a game I played day and night. I mastered to the core. And if you've ever played the game, it only goes up to level 20. There's an easy, medium, and hard. And I had played that game day and night. I'd even got my mom hooked on the game, and she was playing it and enjoying it. And she came in one night while I was playing it. And little did I know that level 20 wasn't the last level in the game. It goes beyond level 20. And I took it. I was playing hard. I got all the way to level 25 on hard with that game. And I was just astounded at the end when I looked down and went, wow, 25? But it stopped at 20. And I was so into the game. I'm dropping pills left and right. And
Talking about
the game here.
Pills.
I'm doing stims just to get through my game.
Sometimes it takes a little meth when they start speeding up like that.
Great game moments like, seeing the shuttle go off in Tetris or something like that.
Yeah. It is those little things where you just you get into the zone, whether it be a shoot 'em up or a puzzler or a fighting game. That's the one thing you really remember is like, wow, that was my day. I owned.
Okay. Any others that we want to add before we go into the next game discussion?
Taking that as a no.
Okay.
So, Murdock, are you human?
Am I what?
Human.
Perhaps he is.
It's called Jamaican.
No, I'm not human. I am one of the visitors.
So we're going to
I
have
eat
to
gerbils.
You want a
cut you open
4400
to
and
rescue
sour
the
milk?
gerbils?
Yeah. No, I don't drink sour milk and get drunk off it. Nerd. One more thing. Greatest video game moment for me: clearing R-Type and having a full head of gray hair right after it.
Lack of pigmentation means wiseness.
So it means
Old.
Greatest video game moment, figuring out what I was doing in Leisure Suit Larry.
Yeah. If
All
you
right.
can figure out what you
Under
had to
the
do
sensor
next.
bar?
I'm 8. I don't know what the hell's going on, but I'm getting through the levels. Okay.
I figured out Zork. You can't pick up E-Flask.
Oh, God.
All right, next game discussion, we're going to talk about the most overrated video games ever. Who wants to start?
Where to start? Well, Rise of the Robots comes to mind.
It's not overrated.
That was just crappy.
It was just crap.
I remember Jaguar pushing that like crazy.
Overrated
and it
game.
turned out to be a big bust.
I consider overrated game like Tomb Raider. That's an overrated game.
Yeah, the first one did pretty well.
The first one was an
doubt-
excellent game that built a genre.
The third one,
I mean-
that was crap.
That
was
that-
absolutely.
The
That's why
sequel
Jesus
certainly
hates you.
went downhill.
Well, of course it went downhill. And then the screaming would start, and Laura's scream would stop, and then the CD would have to spin, and reload the scream. And
I think Halo 2 was overrated, in my opinion. I think there was a
Really?
huge amount of hype put out before that game came out, and then it came out. It turned out to be too short. It didn't really have that many
Except
improvements.
it turned out to be the multiplayer, where it is the single greatest console multiplayer game ever.
I don't know. I personally thought it was overrated both times.
Yeah,
This is me coming from, I played Quake for 3 hours at a time every
These
night
are also
for months
both
at
of
a
the
time,
people
so.
that complain bitterly about having to play an FPS with a controller.
Well, yeah, but I mean,
When I did plug that
the
bad-
thing was with Halo, there wasn't, for me, it didn't feel like there was anything new and great about it. I mean, the multiplayer was great because really, what else did you play massively multiplayer a lot of the time on a console before then? Not much. But I mean,
Except when I saw Halo, the only FPS that I played before that on a console that was even worth playing was GoldenEye.
Yeah.
That's a long time
I
to
will
wait
admit
for
I'm
another
probably
good FPS.
biased because I do play FPSs on PC.
Yes,
but when I
yes.
did get the frag box that you bought for me, and I plugged that boy in,
Which is
third
still at my
rounds
house,
later,
by the way.
3 rounds into it, you can ask Angry John. I fucking owned everybody for 3 or 4 rounds.
I would like to mention that the first FPS that I played was on the Genesis. It was called Zero Tolerance. Thank you.
Oh, Zero Tolerance ruled.
Yeah,
Not only
someone
did I
remembers
play-
that game.
Not only did I play that, I plugged in some 9 Inch Nails import
No, you were.
tracks
Were you
into the background.
No, was
and-
it you that liked playing Faceball 2000 with a player, or was that someone else? That was
No,
someone
it
else.
wasn't me.
Okay.
So if you're saying Halo and Halo 2 are overrated, what's a better FPS on a console?
Well, I'm
that's
just
just
saying I'm not
turns out.
considering just consoles. I mean, this is what I'm saying. I mean, I'm not considering just consoles. So that's why it didn't show anything to me that I hadn't seen before.
And
Yeah.
I was happy to have an FPS that I enjoyed and could play on my couch.
Yeah, see, I don't need to play it on my couch.
I'd rather sit behind the keyboard.
I need to point out I don't have a couch.
Problem one.
Well, no, I
If you
just
have a
I
couch,
don't have a
please
problem
send-
with that.
Please email us at diehardgamer.
And then you play FPSs on your couch.
I would
love
like to
that.
say right now, and you can send the angry hate mail to diehardgamerradio@gmail.com. But I will say that the most overrated video games ever will have to be Final Fantasies 7 and 8. Are probably
Well,
the
any
most
Final Fantasy
overrated.
after 6,
Um,
as far as I'm concerned.
I would have to disagree with you.
I think 8
Some of
was
them
even worse than 7. 8
Well,
was really
8
touted to be a
Well, the
new...
thing was with 8 was that 8 just changed a lot of the standard conventions.
This
You know,
is
the
probably
enemies
why
went,
I liked it.
yeah, the enemies went up levels as you did. You couldn't just learn magic; you had to steal magic. You had to draw magic from.
It was a Final Fantasy game where the winning strategy was not to run around in a circle for 8 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In fact, the best way to beat Final
I'll
Fantasy
give it
8
that.
was to be pretty much at the lowest level possible.
Yep.
It was an interesting strategy.
It was different.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it also had a bunch of angsty teenagers.
Yeah.
Which
That's totally unlike all the other Final
Well, okay.
Fantasy games.
I would
Wow,
like to
there's a
mention-
deviation from
I would
a
like to
theme.
mention that Final Fantasy VIII is basically they took someone's live journal and made a game out of it.
Yeah.
I think the
what
latest...
is that
Cheer
like
up,
Final
emo boy.
Fantasy 10?
I think the latest
Okay,
Final
10
Fantasy
wasn't-
actually has
10 wasn't
angsty
as bad as
20-year-olds,
that.
though.
10 was not nearly as bad as 8. When
Yeah,
it came to
but I think
angsty,
Final Fantasy is
emotional
actually
teenagers.
growing up, though. I mean, I think now they've got angsty 20-year-olds. It's more
Oh,
like the
yeah,
real world.
because so instead of them being live journal, now they're in an emo band.
Yeah, so they're real world now. Back then, they're Degrassi Junior High. Okay. And back then, they were Kids Incorporated. Okay, well, that makes kind of a big difference.
KIDS.
And also, the thing about Final Fantasy VII is I still think it has the best upgrade system of any of the Final Fantasies
You're talking
ever.
about the materia system?
Yes. That was by far the most interesting.
The materia system was an interesting system. It's just a lot of... And the game itself, as far as the gameplay goes, is very solid. But it wasn't the gameplay I had a real big problem with Final Fantasy VII. It was actually the story. The story and the characters and the fact that after the second disc, nothing made sense.
Oh my god,
And that's
the
kind of
live
what you
stream
get
is
into an
going to
RPG
observe
for, too, is the story.
Well, okay.
It really makes the game
Good
better.
Now, the last good Final Fantasy game is Final Fantasy VI. I don't care what anyone says. You can send me threat emails, whatever. But I can tell you
So that's
what
when I
happened
get
from the
warm
beginning
feeling.
to the end in Final Fantasy VI, and it made perfect sense. Final Fantasy VII, not so much. I mean, after the whole Genova thing and Sephiroth being all angsty, and then you're kind of like, well, what? Huh? And here's the mom, and he's a clone, and what? After that, and then 8 is just like, what the fuck?
But he's so pretty.
He looks like a girl.
What was confusing about 8? That was a pretty straightforward one.
Yeah, but it wasn't very interesting. And you know, right, I lost interest like right after the whole Squall and Laguna thing, and it's just like, oh my god, just get on with it, and just irritated me. But that's
so
more
stop
of a personal...
playing games you don't like, man.
Well, I did stop playing it.
He is holding out hope that they will be interesting to him again.
Now, Final Fantasy IX, I didn't mind so much.
Well,
9 was okay.
that's because it was the retro throwback, let's do all the same shit we've always done before again game.
Yeah,
I mean, if you got a formula that works, stick with it. I mean, it doesn't
yeah,
necessarily...
but
Except
then,
that's
then
what
you
all
have
the
Final Fantasy
console-
11, and it's just like, oh, okay,
Except that's what all the console RPG games have been doing for ages, and that's why they're just all the same exact mechanics over and over and
the
over
first-person
again.
It doesn't seem to stop
shooters aren't the
Japanese
same.
kids from buying them, though.
I mean, are you going to argue the fact that Halo isn't like the same as, say, Quake.
Actually, Halo did bring several really interesting ideas to FPSs. It
Like
made
cursing
melee combat.
over a microphone.
Well, it made melee combat a vital part of FPSs, which I think was a really interesting idea. The shield mechanic also changed the dynamics of things fairly significantly.
You haven't seen the championship Counter-Strike teams that run around just using knives?
I'm going to take that as a no.
But
I mean, really.
that's not the same thing because it wasn't that melee was integrated with every weapon. I mean, in Halo, it is a very common thing to be shooting at somebody and close in to do a melee attack for the kill.
I never did that.
Well,
It's not so
Maybe that's why
essential
you're not
because I
very
never
good.
did it. Well, I almost
It's
got
not
through the whole
essential.
game.
I don't think it's essential in the game, but
No, I don't think it's essential either.
It adds another.
So are there any other overrated games that we want to talk about other than Halo and some of the Final Fantasies? Or possibly anything by Acclaim?
what
Turok?
games do people say they really, really like? I mean, that's usually where you end up with those things.
Yeah, but then you're going to go into like Madden and Resident Evil and stuff like that.
Well, Madden, I think, is like, is Final Fantasy times a billion. Because really, I slapped a new coat of paint on it, and here it is. Buy for $59.99 again.
Yeah, you got a couple new rookies this year and a little better graphics, but same thing.
Except more than one company makes RPGs.
Well.
Only one company makes football games.
Well, you
Well-
got to give them a little bit of
makes
credit.
NFL.
It makes
Officially
NFL
licensed.
football games.
You have to
yeah.
give them a little bit of credit. They have been innovating above and beyond their sport. I mean, we've gotten to the point where you can become the owner of the company. You run everything from top down to bottom. I mean,
Yeah,
you can
but couldn't
really
you
have
essentially do that
assumed-
in Tecmo football?
No.
I mean,
you
you
just
were
controlled your team and you went out and played. But I mean, this is
what
getting it to a
NES
core
game was
level.
that where you could actually run your team? Oh, it was Major League Baseball. In NES Baseball, you could actually trade players and you could do all that sort of stuff.
Ah, okay. Well,
There's
in
always
football,
been the management sims.
Yeah.
Have pretty much existed side by side the standard sports games.
but they don't give you the control over the players and going in and playing the game.
Well,
all the
Major
way
League
through
Baseball
and-
did.
Yeah.
And
Well, that
NES
was-
Baseball or whatever the
It's
hell
not
it was
a
called.
new idea.
Yeah.
No, but it's new to football.
Well, it hasn't been
It's
done
newer
in a
to-
long time, that's
it's
for
newer
sure.
to other sports. Maybe in baseball it was old, but it was nice. Those innovations are being pushed into other sports games. So, I mean, there are more and more things becoming possible, and the games do look better. But you've really got to be a diehard fan of that sport to really go out and buy every game.
But John
every
does
year.
make a good point. A game that you hear a lot about eventually becomes very overrated, either because you just hear about it so much you just get sick and tired of hearing about
Well,
it.
it's the franchising thing, too.
Yeah.
I mean, once you have a franchise that people will buy over and over again, no matter what you put into it, I mean, eventually the amount of effort that you have to put in to get people buy is going to go down so you can increase your profit margin because EA bought you.
Well,
So-
see, that could be said about any game. I mean, there's been people that say, how many times do you got to go off and save the princess? Jesus, man.
Well,
It's every year.
Fuck yeah, man.
But you know what? As long-
Hey,
how many
save the
times do you
fucking
have to do
princess?
Hey,
it?
it
That's
worked.
just the-
It worked in Mario and God of War.
That's what I'm saying, though. As long as you've got people that enjoy doing that over and over,
Uh,
it just doesn't matter.
What princess in God of War?
Well, I'm just saying. Did he rescue like some?
No, he defeats the god of war.
Oh.
Sorry if that was a spoiler for you. Not quite so much about the princess solving,
It's
more
only a
about
s-
the brutal slaying.
It's only a semi-spoiler because, I mean, it's in the title for crying out loud.
Well, it really depends
Should
on
be a
how
hint.
good you are. You may not defeat the God of War.
Yeah, you may realize
You may fail in your quest.
So anyway, that's our talk for the overrated video games ever. Trying to speed this along a little.
Wow, that really sucked, man.
What do you mean?
Well, there's
It
got to
seems
be
like
like
there's
more
other games,
overrated
yeah.
crap, and
Well,
there's got to be overrated games that I don't have to sit over here and defend.
I think there's probably more.
Oh, there's a lot more.
I think there's too many
just
more.
can't
That's
think
probably
of
the
any
problem.
right now.
We'll come back to this topic at another
Oh
time.
yeah.
Oh,
When our
Mortal
hatred
Kombat.
rises,
Fucking Mortal Kombat.
Well, Mortal Kombat was pretty cool for, up until number 2.
Yeah.
Well, actually,
Yeah,
up until
but
number 3.
three, yeah.
Number 2
Yeah,
was
but
still
there's-
pretty cool.
There's games like that have just been, killed by, sequelitis, and then they become overrated, like, say, Sonic the Hedgehog or the Mega Man series.
That's an exact example of what I was talking about. They went and fucked with the formula so much that people were tired of it, and it just ruined the core gameplay. That happens with a lot of fighters after the second one. They just, oh, wow, well, now we're riding the storm, and people want to see a third one, and we got to give them something new to bring them back. You really don't need
button.
you don't really need that much new things. Stick with what works and just change a few little things maybe, or add a few new characters. People will still enjoy it.
The reason that Mortal Kombat 2 was better than Mortal Kombat 1 is it was essentially the same gameplay, but they made it better.
Well,
Your guys were
exactly
more maneuverable.
Yeah.
They responded better to when you did stuff. They had a few new extra moves, but I mean, it stick to the same thing.
But 9 times out of 10, the first fighting game that comes out is more of a beta than anything because they're doing it for the first time. They don't know what's going to work.
He's
and what's
right.
not.
Like if you say, I mean, we use the example Mortal Kombat versus Mortal Kombat 2, but that's pretty much the same in most fighting games except for maybe Killer Instinct. But like say, for example, Samurai Showdown, perfect example. 1, pretty good game, but 2, superior to the first one.
Fatal
Still
Fury, Art of Fighting, you name it, yeah. It's always come to that sequel.
Art of Fighting
was still hard, but at least it was a little improved graphics. It was a little, the scroll was a little better. I think it was a better game. But that's the point, though. Is it's the first one is really just you're testing the water, and then you see everything that was wrong.
It's just a matter of just perfecting your art. It's just practicing
but you always perfect it by that second game. And you pulled in enough people in that first game, they're willing to come back for the sequel, and they'll actually drop more money.
All
on
right.
it.
Well, we're going to go on to the next topic since we're running a little behind. Next, we're going to do Gamer Under a Rock, and Steve is going to talk about Dead to Rights.
Dead to Rights.
So, Steve,
Or wrong.
Dead to Rights.
All right, so Dead to Rights. Decided to review it because it was $4. And really, it's worth about $4.
So
Sticking
how much
with the
did that
theme.
work out per hour?
Like $1 an hour. It's pretty good. Actually less because I got it under EB's buy 2 get 1 free. So
Probably paid like $3.
yeah, I mean if you average it out, it was a lot less. So Dead to Rights is like it's a third person walk around and shoot stuff game, but
I hear there's a dog.
there is a dog.
Cool, Shadow Dancer.
Essentially, the deal is that you're a cop in a corrupt city, and your dad is killed by some corrupt bad guys, and you have to go and find who killed him and take your revenge, and then there's probably other plot stuff that I didn't get to.
And you're not as cool as Steven Seagal.
You're not as cool as Steven Seagal in any way, shape, or form. This game, we had another friend of ours who actually played it, and he had some of the same complaints that I did. He didn't make it as far in the game because of these complaints. The control scheme is kind of weird. I mean, it's not so foreign that you're like, what the hell is going on? But it's really hard. There's really no up and down shooting. You don't have free shoot. You don't have free look around. You have free look in a horizontal plane, but not in a vertical plane. And the way you actually target people is you hold down one button and it starts targeting. And like the Path of Neo that I reviewed in the last one, you use one of the 2 thumbsticks to toggle around targets. It works okay. I mean, I think I did better on it than Roger did simply because I'd played enough of Path of Neo. But I mean, the gunplay is about the exact same. The problem that I came up with is that the firing trigger is actually the A button. It's not one of the finger triggers. One of the finger triggers is used for crouching. So one takes and targets, the other one crouches. You're using this finger to cycle through targets, and then you're using the A button to fire with.
That does not seem like best use of buttons.
No,
Did it give you the option to go in there and switch your configuration?
I didn't check,
it was
but
just that you were supposed to be switching back and forth between the right thumbstick, switching between targets, and hitting the A button to fire once you'd locked onto it.
Yeah. And really, I mean, you couldn't move when you were crouched, so that didn't help. It does have some really interesting gameplay mechanics that it teaches you at the beginning. Like, you can use enemies as human shields. So you can disarm them while you're using them as a human shield, and basically they act as armor for you while you're firing at other people.
Yeah.
The problem with that is, as would be in real life, you can't really see around them very well. They kind of block your field of view a little bit, which isn't so big of a deal because it's not like you're aiming on your own anyway. You're holding down the aim button and cycling through targets. And then you can take and you can, when you're done, this will definitely get Jack Thompson in the thing. When you're done with your guy, you don't have a lot of mobility when you're using the human shield because you kind of have to drag him around in front of you. you just take and you shoot them in the back of the head and toss them aside. So Jack Thompson, not
Thanks for
liking that
taking
too
one
much.
for the other team.
So there's not even a button to let him go without killing him?
There is not. Not that I found, at least. And depending on the weapon you have, you kill them in a different way. If you've got like a submachine gun, you'll kick them forward and you'll shoot them in the back of the head. If you've got a pistol, you push their head all the way and shoot them in the side of the head. So, they spent a lot of time figuring out how you're going to kill your poor human shields.
So if they take enough bullets when you're pushing them around, do they die too?
Yes. They will die being your human shield.
So after playing the Guantanamo Bay simulator,
Yeah, exactly. Oh, I want to say that one of the great things about this game was the fact that actually my favorite thing of this whole game was the intro. The intro sequence with the credits. It was better than the Ultraviolet intro by like a million times.
Okay, not saying much.
It was really good because it actually what it was is it's a sequence of newspaper clippings, and the newspaper clippings tell you the story from the inception of this town in the 19th century all the way up through the current times, and of this one family, the Pinnacle family, that's basically become this big, sort of powerful business force in the town. And so it actually
kind of own the town. So
yeah. They're like this undercurrent type thing that really is the basis for the town, and it worked really well. It was nice. And then they started doing dialogue, and once the dialogue started,
like good sex.
It really tried to be. I mean, I think what they were trying for with the dialogue and with the attitude of the game was very much Sin City. Yeah. They were really trying to do that sort of thing, the sort of film noir, dark, corrupted city with the whatever, and it just didn't quite get pulled off.
So how bad was their voice acting?
It was like I would say noir, film noir stuff. Not the greatest dialogue in there, but it's got this kind of schlocky sort of style to it. This is film noir without the schlocky style. Yeah, so it doesn't quite do it. It's like bad dialogue without the style that makes you want to listen to it.
So game might have been better if it was in black and white?
Might have been, and if they had better. Also, if they had jazz, if they had like a saxophone in the background or something.
That's like the
other unexpected thing about this game, besides the fact that it was a lot of hiding behind walls and shooting at things, it does have wall hide, and you can peek around walls and shoot at stuff. Crouching, like I say, it decreases your amount. It has the dog, which I didn't get a whole lot of use out of, but it was apparently kind of useful. He doesn't follow you around the whole game. And even in the tutorial, when you use him, he just kind of appears when you need him, out of nowhere. He's in hammer space somewhere, and you pull him out.
Goes maul somebody's genitals and runs away?
Yes, and runs away, yes. Although there was,
one.
in the training, and I imagine in later parts in the game, you actually could control him at some points to actually solve puzzles, to let you get to different areas, which was kind of cool. Speaking of puzzles, there are puzzle mini-games in this. And they're not of the puzzle mini-games you might think of. I mean, they had a very interesting puzzle lock-picking game. You had to pick a lock, and basically it has the tumblers rotating at different speeds and different directions, and you had to hit a button to line them up with the hotspot to get them in right. So you picking in.
It's more like gambling.
Well, yeah, if you pick it wrong, it moves you back a tumbler. And so you have to get it right, and I imagine the other ones in the game and later in the game become more and more complex. The other thing that I really liked, and I told Roger he had to play for another 5 minutes because he didn't quite get to this part yet, was the stripper rhythm minigame. There's a scene in this game where you're trying to find the guy who's responsible for having your father killed, and you come across your sister or your girlfriend or something at the strip club. And you have to get through the main room in order to get to this person, but there's bouncers there who would recognize you. And so what she does is she goes out and she dances to distract the bodyguards. And basically it's like Guitar Man, or it's like Space Channel 5, when you have to do it in a certain pattern in order to make her dance correctly. And if your dance is within a certain margin of doing it correctly, the bodyguard becomes entranced with you and walks up to the stage, and you can. You're at that point, your boyfriend or your brother or whatever can run around back.
The greatest mini game since the sex scene in God of War with the two girls.
I mean, she kind of dances, like, well, we can't make this an A game, so But it was. I mean,
what does she do when she screws it up?
I never screwed it up. So Steve liked the mini game. Yeah, I never screwed it up. I've spent a lot of time playing Guitar Hero. I think I'm pretty good at hitting buttons in patterns. But and you know, as there's just a lot of the same in the game, and there's a lot of guns laying around. You can double fist your guns and switch them, you know, in the middle of a firefight. Like I say, a lot of hiding behind walls. There's also I forgot to mention there's bullet time, so you can jump and yeah. And I kind of got to the point really where I was in a room that basically required you to use a human shield the whole time. And the problem with using human shield is that it's really hard to turn around, and enemies will come from all directions. And so that would have taken me a little bit longer to get through.
There's just no cover there or anything?
There isn't, and cover is destructible too. One of the things actually that I saw that was kind of interesting, and I've never actually seen another game before, which may be because I don't play a lot of these games. But you could pick up explosive canisters, like canisters of lighter fluid or something, toss them up in the air over your enemies and shoot them, and it would act like a grenade.
Nice.
Which was kind of cool, but kind of hard to control.
That's what you'd have to toss it, then target it, and then shoot it.
Yep.
So what would you rate this game overall?
I'd give it a 3. And
Really?
be really generous and give it a 3, just because I liked the cinematics at the very beginning. Really told a great story, better story than the rest of the game did. It told a great story. I was like, wow, this might be a really cool game. And then they started talking. I'm like, oh no.
It only had just been a short story and you didn't even play.
Yeah.
If they could have just stuck with that same style for the cutscenes or something.
They didn't really have a lot of cutscenes. I mean, the cutscenes were pretty good in the sense that there were scantily clad associates of you in them. But other than that, I mean, corrupt cop and whatever. So,
okay. One day, Steve will do a game and it will get a rating higher than 3.
Well, no, I think what did I give Path of Neo? I think I gave it a 3.5.
Whoa, now.
Whoa! Wow.
What did I give my first? What was the first one I did?
Wasn't that Kill Switch?
Kill Switch.
Like
did I get 3.75 or something like that?
So he will get above a 3 point something.
Well, the next one the next week is going to be what is it? What's the other one I got? Fatal Frame 2.
That has some hope.
Yeah, so.
Okay. So you'll have to listen to find out what Steve thinks.
Tune in next podcast.
Or something.
And we'll have your Ovaltine secret code, too.
Yes.
Decoder rings.
Yes.
Valkyrie.
Who knows? The shadow knows.
All right.
What evil lurks in the hearts of men.
Eat your multi meal.
Ken Kutaragi
The news.
All right. So next we're going to go into our game reviews, and I will start with King of Fighters 11 for the PlayStation 2. Now, I'm not going to spend a lot of time explaining what King of Fighters is. You either know it or you don't. And if you don't know it, you might want to check Wikipedia or perhaps GameFAQs at some point.
Or perhaps your buy it again, sell it again, play it again video game store, which probably has about 7 million of them.
But basically, for those who aren't too familiar with it, with the King of Fighters series, it's basically they take characters from previous SNK fighting games like Art of Fighting, Fatal Fury, Mark of the Wolves, and put them all. Not Samurai Showdown, not in King of Fighters.
Oh, yeah, you're right. I'm sorry.
Akari Warriors, and they put them all in one game. You're probably thinking of Marvel versus, SNK versus Capcom.
Yeah, there's been so many lately.
Getting all the crossovers. I do the same thing. So King of Fighters 11 is obviously the 11th part of the series. They were coming out on a yearly basis, but after 2003, I believe, they stopped doing it on a yearly basis and started releasing it whenever. So far as
whenever they had something new to add to the series.
Yeah. So in this series, there's from what I could tell just from the character roster, it's looking like there's about 35 to 40 playable characters in this game, and that doesn't include the characters you can unlock.
Yeah, this is
in the game. And there's a huge amount of characters you can select in this game. Now, for those of you who are familiar with the gameplay of King of Fighters, it hasn't really changed that much in King of Fighters 11, but there are some new things to this game. First thing is that when you select your character, you have a team of 3, and you choose one of the characters to be the leader, and then you have your other 2 all on the sides. Now, unlike the other King of Fighters series, you can switch your characters at any time during the match. So it plays a lot like, say, the Marvel vs. Capcom series. So if one of your characters is getting kind of low, you can go ahead and hit both lights, switch out another character, and the other character who you've swapped with, they'll be in the background replenishing their life.
Can you combo between the switches too?
From what I can tell, kind of, sort of, but I've never been able to pull it off successfully yet. There probably is a way to do it, but I haven't found a way to do it yet. But I haven't had the game that long. Now, the way it works is that you choose your 3 characters. You can either choose a team or you can edit your own team. You choose whoever the leader of the team is, and then your other 2 characters, and then you choose the order in which you want to have your characters played, just like every other King of Fighters. And then from there, you have your stock bar of 5 stocks of special power and the ability to switch characters at any time. Once one of your characters is defeated, your next character just jumps right in. No load time, no nothing. It just jumps right in. So no recovery of the opponent's life. So say, for example, you're at like 50% life and you just defeat your opponent. The next opponent will just jump right in and you'll still be at that life. So it's not like the old King of Fighters where once you defeat one character, then when the other character comes up, you get like a little bit of life regeneration. Not anymore. So it's very quick. The graphics in it are very good. They're very, very well done. Animation is actually average for SNK Playmore type stuff. Character designs, with some of the characters, they're okay, some are not. But I think after a lot of the stuff that Playmore did, some of the other characters just aren't as appealing, I guess.
I wonder if this is why the Wii's getting the 2D games. None of these companies want to have to actually redraw these 2D sprites they've been working on for a decade at higher resolution.
Well, and that's the thing we discussed last week is there aren't any 2D artists left at these places, so they can't redraw them.
Well, this is one of the newer King of Fighters. It's also
they're all
based on
7-Eleven
the
employees.
Adams Wave hardware. It's not based on the old MVS hardware, so it's different.
Yeah, and the nice thing about this game, no load time.
Yeah.
Even with just the initial load time, not that much. So runs pretty quick, real smooth. So I guess the PlayStation 2 doesn't have that pesky problem with loading sprites as it used to.
Well, they've solved it finally.
Maybe they're just better at preemptively loading things.
Or decided to add more than a meg of RAM.
What does the PlayStation 2 have? Like 8, I think?
Something like that. As opposed
Probably more than that.
Yeah.
It's got to be more than that.
It has as much as my Commodore 64.
Sony adds 128K of RAM to
Probably
the
like
PlayStation
32
3.
or 64.
So as a basic fighter, just improved graphics, improved style, a little bit faster, it sounds like.
And a lot harder.
And, yeah.
It is not a cakewalk game. You will get your ass kicked many times before learning it. But the nice thing is, if you haven't played a King of Fighters in a while, like I haven't, because I haven't played one since like a Dreamcast one. This one,
2000, yeah.
Yeah, this one should be real easy to just pick up and play. Not a lot of the moves have changed. Some of them have been enhanced. It controls real nice on just even your standard DualShock.
There's other game modes also.
Oh yeah, there's plenty of game modes. There's an endless, there's an arcade, there's versus. I mean, anything you would want in a King of Fighters, it's there.
Nice.
So in the end, I will give King of Fighters 11 a 4 out of 5. The only thing that's really stopping it from a 5 is that it does suffer from SNK boss syndrome. Yeah. And for those who have played a lot of SNK fighting games, you'll play through to the final boss and then realize that the final boss is the cheapest, most annoying thing ever. And for those who have played against the former SNK bosses, you kind of know what I'm talking about.
I'll slap you and call you Susan.
Yeah, ever since Amakusa from Samurai Showdown 1 and Mizuki from 2,
yeah,
and Gonitz, King of Fighters 96. Need I say more? So next we're going to go into another game review, and Brian has one for Point Blank DS.
Yeah, Point Blank. Probably one of the most fun shooting games you'll buy on your PlayStation 2. Point Blank was a game that came from Japan originally called Gun Bullet. They changed it to Point Blank when it came over here. It's basically just a gun game. Simple, fun, kind of almost carnival-esque gun game where you shot little things moving around, animals, targets, you name it. The neat thing about it was there's always like two colors. You would be red, the player 2 would be blue, and that was the competitive part when you went into multiplayer. The basic fun of it is just simple. It's not meant to be anything spastic or bloody or anything. It's just kind of that carnival feeling. It's just fun to play, and it is silly. It almost makes fun of itself more than anything. There were 3 games of this that came out between the PlayStation 1 and PlayStation 2. Or rather, PlayStation 1, I mean. There's 3 on that. This is pretty much the same thing. A few new modes, a few new pictures, but it does it in one of the weirdest ways. I never really understood initially what you were going to be able to do with the stylus, and I couldn't really imagine the possibilities of things. And this is probably one of the last things I would have chose to do on the DS. But it turns out to work really well. It's actually a lot of fun, and if you've ever used a Palm or anything of that sort, you can get right into it. It has the same things that all the original 3 did. It even has a wireless mode where you can play with a friend, and it's real competitive that way. And that's even more fun because there's different modes in that, too, that you don't get in the single player. It's definitely interactive. It's just as colorful as it ever was. It's really simple because the DS is pretty much about the simple games. I don't think it's really lost anything. If anything, it kind of enhances it because it's allowing you to play a gun game with your stylus, and it just gets a little more creative, a little bit smaller. That's probably the only downside is you don't have that huge screen to look at like you do on your TV. You've got to hit things in a little bit more of a pinpoint perspective. But you've got a little bit of area of play in there. There's a little bit of give and take. It's a silly little diversion. You can get it for between $25 and $30 at most game stores. And I definitely recommend it if you're a fan of shooting games. I'd definitely give it a 4 out of 5.
I heard it described as the WarioWare of light gun games.
It really is. They're silly and they're fun. I mean, you can't go wrong with it.
Not only that, but just, you figure you have a stylus, a light gun game just seems to be a logical choice.
It is now. I wouldn't have pictured it initially, but it really makes sense after playing it and seeing how well it works. It's like the perfect thing for the DS.
And I bought the game too. The only thing I want to add is that the way they do the 2-player mode is real weird because you can't use 2 cartridges for it. It's very bizarre.
Yeah, that is
kind of
strange.
You only use just 1 cartridge.
You have to use game sharing? You can't both have a cartridge?
Yeah, that is correct. Weird. And there's just that struck me as real odd unless we're missing something in the instructions. But when when Brian and I tried the 2-player mode, we had to remove one of the cartridges for it to work.
Huh. Otherwise, it sits there and just sits as both systems sit in search mode because they're looking for somebody else to download their game information to, and they won't find it because the other person's doing the same thing
instead of a peer setup.
Yeah.
Well, the real question here is it better than Revolution X?
Well, I'd say it is. It's definitely more fun.
Yeah,
and you're not looking for gold CDs along the way.
Well,
Yeah, our next podcast will talk about bands who made video games and shouldn't have. Let's start with Aerosmith, Revolution X.
Work our way back to Journey.
Journey,
Atari 2600.
Well, the Journey arcade that had a cassette in it that would play Journey songs while you were playing the game.
Don't stop believing, just stop playing the game.
Well, how else were they going to do it? I mean, it's not like they had a lot of media to keep their songs on.
Yeah.
MP3 on 5 1/4 disc.
Not so much.
I bet you could probably do it on Amiga.
I know. I think we could look up and find more games.
Yeah.
All right. So now we're going to do our classic game reviews, and John has one very old and obscure game for the PlayStation.
Wait, is it Power Shovel?
Yes.
It might be Power Shovel.
I have a feeling.
So, John, can you tell us about Power Shovel?
The suspense may have never ended there.
Yeah.
The great Karnak commands that you will do.
So, Power Shovel is one of these PS1 games that came out after the console was dead. Well, it was after the PS2 had been out for a while, but they were still making PS1 games. Hell, I think they're still making PS1 games now.
I would not doubt it.
And they keep just kind of trickling out into weird places.
It's all the ones that never were going to succeed before the $30 marker coming out
Or
suddenly at
or
$5
translations
$6.
of the simple 2000 series. Yeah.
Well, that or somebody was looking through CVS and said, "Hey, what's this?"
So Power Shovel is... It must have been an arcade game. I hope it was, because I would love to see a console for this thing. Basically, you control a power shovel. You know, steam shovel? Remember when you were a kid,
Dirt
thought
scooper.
power equipment was cool? Yeah.
Tonka ruled.
Tonka.
There's a sequence of difficulty levels that you go through on the arcade mode, and you have to complete an objective within a certain time limit. And as you go through the difficulty levels, you're operating bigger and more powerful construction equipment, have to do more important tasks, you know, from moving sand into a truck to knocking down a house to stopping a lava flow. All sorts of amazing things you can do with your power shovel.
And knocking down those houses wasn't easy either. I mean, this is not a particularly easy game, at least the little parts that I saw.
Well, it's because it actually uses a realistic control scheme. As I understand it, a real power shovel is actually controlled with a pair of joysticks that work
It's like
the
a
exact
bulldozer,
same way that
basically.
the dual analog sticks work for in the game.
Yeah.
So you have to actually map it out, and every time you do something wrong, like knock down something you're not supposed to, the game gets upset with you. So speed, control, and precision are
And the
all
guy
important.
yells at you in Japanese.
Your
Your
boss
foreman.
is yelling at you. That's going to cost you $300.
So that's pretty interesting, right? And you earn money from this arcade mode, and you can use it to unlock pictures of heavy equipment.
Yep, you heard right.
Tonka
Real
porn.
life heavy equipment.
Tonka porn.
And up at the top, you can actually unlock videos of said equipment once you've accumulated large quantities of money.
More Tonka porn.
To add to the incredible strangeness of this game, however, that's not the only way to earn money. There's also a part-timer mode where you can go in and play different mini-games with the power shovel. These are strange. For instance, you can have one where you have to scoop the appropriate hotness of curry onto gigantic bowls of rice with your power shovel.
Why would you not want to do that?
There's another one where you're on a space station and there's little bullet things that are marching at you from different directions, and you have to whack them on the head before they get you with your power shovel.
On the space station.
Yeah.
Alrighty.
The shovel gets around.
There's another one, for instance, where you've got a carnival minigame where you have to hit a ball off a tee and knock down pins that are standing up on platforms.
It's like a giant wiffle ball.
Yeah, with your power shovel.
Power shovel.
Your power shovel. The last one sounds very Japanese, however.
Yeah.
I can buy that one.
There are quite a number of them, and you earn money for doing them well. And, you know, this is such a strange game, but it ends up being oddly compelling.
It's its own genre, that's for sure. In fact, there was only one other made to really fit in that genre.
Well, that we
two
know
are
of,
very
at
unique.
least.
No, actually, we know of two of now, because they did Dirt Jockey, and also there's a PC game called Caterpillar that apparently sucks.
Oh, that
but
must
still
have been
gonna
the
have to take a
American
look at.
version of
You know,
it.
I think I vaguely remember that game.
Yeah.
The other two were Japanese, weren't they? Like Mitsubishi or Koimatsu, Komatsu. I
Yeah,
think.
it's Komatsu Heavy
Yeah.
Industries is definitely what
And it was
Power
probably
Shovel is all
heavily
about.
sponsored by Komatsu. Just judging by the pictures of the real life equipment,
And
wasn't
the
there
logos that
bonus
are all over the
videos
place.
also in this one?
Well, because it was all Komatsu equipment, so it all
No,
had
wasn't
their
there like
logo on
video
it.
footage of it in action you could watch?
Yeah. One of the videos you unlocked was basically the product brochure for one
Yeah.
of these power shovels.
Well, when else do they get to actually
You know what would
license
have been
images
really
of their
cool
stuff?
if one of the videos you unlocked was actual like Komatsu safety films. You know, like the ones they used to do in the 70s, where, you know, if you didn't use the equipment correctly, you would see some guy like fall to his death or something like that.
Always wear your safety glasses.
Yes.
Don't
If
forget
Fuji
to.
had just been a little bit more careful, he would have been crushed by that arm.
Now his wife has to work and he is shamed.
Yeah, his family name is forever dishonored.
I think the one that stuck with me most was remember to engage the safety lock on the dump truck before you go crawling around underneath the hydraulic lamp.
Why would you want to do that?
It was not a good way to die.
So overall,
That was a bad death.
what do you rate this
Bad end.
this unique genre game?
Man, seriously, can you rate this game? I mean, if you're
Yes.
not already intrigued by the idea of playing with a power shovel, don't bother. But if this makes you laugh at all, you've got to find this game. It is unique. It is novel.
It's about
That's what it
$3
has
if you're a
going
local
for it.
EB.
That's not a rating.
It's the unique novel rating.
It gets an X.
It gets a
Where
novelty.
X is your rating.
I give this game a novelty.
It gets 5 safety helmets out of 7.
It is the best game in its genre.
It gets a
One of the only games.
it gets an unqualified huh?
Maybe you can't logically rate a game unless there's at least 5 of that type of game in
Your
existence.
sample space is too small.
Yeah,
you
your
might
samples are
need
distorted.
something to compare it to
Yeah.
before you can
There
start
really
to
is
develop
nothing else.
a plan of
The only thing the other
continuity
game has
or
going
quality.
for it is you get to operate more different types of power equipment. That's
Yeah.
basically it.
Well, we'll review Dirt Jockey next time.
Yeah. In fact, I'll shoot for Dirt Jockey next time.
Okay.
Touche.
The only thing you can
Soon.
compare this to is the little claw grab thing that you get the stuffed animals out of. That's the
Claw
genre.
machine. That's not a genre. That's a money stealer.
Yes, it is.
All right.
Especially people never play that game because they make us stuff the animals down as hard as possible.
And a weak claw.
So next, our last classic game review, I'm going to be talking about Parasite Eve for the PlayStation 1. Oh boy, is this game old.
It's not that old.
I remember selling it. It can't be that old.
Yeah, you remember selling it at EB? And
Yeah.
how long ago did you work at EB?
97.
Yeah, so
Well, 96.
Almost
Yeah.
10 years.
10 years ago.
96, yeah.
Ah, that pretty old. So anyway,
It's only 1/3 of my life.
so Parasite Eve is a SquareSoft game, and basically what happens is that on Christmas Eve, a strange, bizarre set of circumstances happens. What happens is that you are at a play, and
Wasn't it like the opera?
yeah, it's like the opera, and you're watching a woman by the name of Melissa Pierce sing, and suddenly she bursts into flame. Everyone bursts into flames, and as a New York police detective, Aya Brea, you kind of find out, well, what the hell's going on? Why are people catching on fire all of a sudden? Well, you find out that there's some weird mutant strain of mitochondria that's going around causing weird mutations and causing people to spontaneously combust. And
Mitochondria.
Oh,
Is
well, I
as
can
in,
see
like,
how,
dust
huh?
mites or
Yeah.
mites in your pillows.
No, not like that.
Midichlorians?
Their midichlorian count was just too high.
Mitochondria,
review.
not midichlorians.
And the
Please
difference
think
is...
of the younglings.
Who do you think it is that taught him to hit it?
But for those who may not be familiar, Parasite Eve is a series of novels in Japan, and it was made into a. Actually, there's 2 games in the series for
And a live-action
Parasite
movie.
Eve. Yeah, actually, I think there's 2 live-action movies now that I think about it.
Do they have tentacles in them?
Perhaps. But basically, the way the game works, it's kind of a cross between Resident Evil
yeah.
and like a role-playing game, and it's kind of hard to describe unless you really play it. But
So
the way it
it's-
works is like this. So you're wandering down the halls, all like a Resident Evil type game. Suddenly, the screen will turn negative colors, and you'll see that, hey, look, there's an enemy that's here. Once you're in a battle with an enemy, you actually have to walk toward the enemy, and once you get close to the enemy, you'll see a small hemisphere appear, which is the range of your weapon. And the closer you get to the enemy, obviously, the more effective your weapon is. You can modify your guns to have slots, to have certain attributes, but the whole point is getting as close to the enemy and inflicting as much damage as possible with your firearms. Now, a lot of the key to the game is just having the right weapon at the right time, and not only that, but having the right tools to modify your gun successfully so that it does more damage. And there's actually a little bit of strategy involved in actually modifying your weapons. For example, you'll start off with nice pea shooter like a 9mm, and you can add slots to it to make it do more things like attack twice in a turn, add fire damage to it, whatever. Larger clip, stuff like that. But the more stuff you add to it, you can either make it better or worse depending on how you modify your weapon. And once you modify a weapon, you can't unmodify it without a special tool. Now, the whole key of modifying your weapon is that you don't want to give it too much of a multiplier where you can, say, hit 5 targets at the same time with one shot, as the effectiveness of the shot will decrease times the amount of targets that you have to hit. So if you do 100 damage on one target spread out among 5 targets, you only do 20 damage each. So you want to kind of keep that in check, and then you don't want to add too many elemental attacks because some enemies might be resistant to it. But in the end, just being able to modify your weapons and being able to experiment with that part of it adds a lot to the game. But as far as the actual gameplay itself, it's not going to be like normal Resident Evil survival horror where you're going to have to avoid battles, because once you walk into like the middle of the screen, battles kind of automatically happen whether you want them to or not. So as far as avoiding battles, not going to have too many opportunities. You may see some enemies show up that you can kind of avoid, but the whole key to the game is just trying to build up as much experience as possible, so it's almost beneficial for you to actually build up.
So does that mean the winning strategy is once again to walk in a circle?
No, actually, well, the thing with Parasite Eve is that when you're in a level and you fight all these enemies, once they're gone, and the only way that you can fight the enemies again is once you clear the level to go back, but you're not going to get as much experience as when you went through the first time. So the game is kind of set in a way where once you go from level to level, you're almost at the right amount of level. You're a little bit weak when you start out, but by the time you get through through that one area, you're almost at the point where you can fight a boss without dying instantly.
So as long as you kill everybody in the level, you're probably going to be okay.
Yeah, and as long as you don't run out of ammunition. The storyline is pretty good. The only complaint I have, other than the fact that it does have a lot of, full motion video, since it is a Squaresoft game, is that the game is really short. Yeah. Even across 2 discs, the game literally, you could probably beat the game in, say, in a week's time. It's a very short game. The nice thing is that once you beat the game, you can actually open up new levels like the Chrysler building. I won't go down that road. That's a level that... Yeah.
Is it the level that never ends?
Well, the Chrysler building is a level that you only get when you beat the game. And what it is, it's a 50-floor nightmare is what it is. You basically go up 50 floors, and there's enemies on every floor. And once you get to the 50th floor, there's a boss that you have to defeat. And once you beat the boss, then you get a special, I believe you get a special item. But it's so ludicrously hard to get from floor 0 to floor 50. And I think there's only like a save point every like 10 floors or something. I mean, it's just ridiculously hard. And it got to I did it, but after a while, it's just like,
you were
what's
slogging.
The point? What's the point?
So what was the point?
Well, you get the nice special weapon and bragging rights, but that's about it.
But after you get that special weapon, you don't want to go through it again anyway, so it's like useless.
And the thing is that when you start the game over, you start off with the same exact stuff you had the last time. So going through the game becomes very easy. It's kind of like Chrono Trigger.
Yeah. Or Metal Gear.
Yeah, and after that, it kind of loses some replay value. But at the time that it came out, it was a very good game. Graphics, it's pretty good. But in the end, after not playing it for a while, I'm probably going to have to give Parasite Eve like a 3.5 out of 5. It's a decent game, but I think the FMV kind of hurts it, and the fact that the game is just really, really short. So that's about it for our reviews.
So Kudelka's pretty much the only other game that's in that genre at all?
Kudelka's just... that's just in its own little world. I can't even describe what that...
It's kind of the survival horror RPG blend, you know?
Yeah, but Kudelka is just so different. And Kudelka is one of the games that I was really, really looking forward to. And when I played it, I realized that the game had a lot of potential that just was never realized, either due to bad planning on the programmer's part or just something went wrong in development that just prevented it. I mean, but you could see the potential in the game, and it just never happened. But Kudelka is a whole other story.
So does that mean there's
game.
Nothing else in the whole survival horror RPG genre then?
I mean, Parasite Eve 2 is obvious, but yeah, I can't think of anything off the top of my head. And Kudelka's not even really survival horror. It
ran out of bullets in like the first 5 minutes.
Well, it's part survival horror, part role-playing game, and part strategy game, because when you got into an actual battle, it was done in a grid-based system.
Well, but isn't that about the same as what you're saying, where position and distance are as important in Parasite Eve?
Yeah, but in Parasite Eve, you could change it at any given time, whereas Kudelka was very much like... I guess the best way to describe it would be like almost like a Shining Force type system.
Well, it was a strategy RPG type combat system.
Yeah, whereas Parasite Eve wasn't like that at all. Whereas you would lock onto an enemy and shoot, and then you'd have to wait for your gun to cock and then shoot, and then you could run away and move back. Whereas in Kudelka, you had to wait for your enemy to make a turn. And of course, the game was like ultra cheap. Yeah. The game was ultra cheap too, so you would have to wait for the enemies to turn, and there was no like turn order at all. So the enemies would have like 7 or 8 turns, and then you would go, and you were like.
Well, it depends what your stats were and everything. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was just a real hard game to get into, and we'll talk about that game later, because that game launched 3 very interesting sequels. But that would be the Shadow Heart series.
Which we have some fans of here.
Yes. So is there any other news or anything else that we want to add before we close up shop for the night?
Nope, it's hot. We're done.
Hot.
It is indeed.
It is
toasty.
It is very warm.
The open sign has been turned off.
It's very warm in John's place where we are doing recordings. So let me go ahead and do the ending part. You've been listening to Diehard Gamer Radio. As always, you can listen to us at diehardgamerradio.com, or you can email us at diehardgamerradio@gmail.com. You can also listen to us at podcastalley.com and allpodcast.net. So once again, you have been listening to 4 guys who know a lot about games and not much else.